Well, good morning, damn fam. Today, recording day is Wednesday, July 15th, 2026. And today on the Daily Beaver Morning Show, we are going to take a moment to remember former Nova Scotia Premier John Hamm. We will take a longer look at the by election in Prince Edward Island, as well as some moving and shaking or comings and goings in various political races that are happening across the country. And we will conclude our coverage of the Prime Minister's recent trip overseas, looking at how everything ended up at the NATO summit and his stop in Saudi Arabia. And I have it on good authority here from Kit Uncover that we might have a little bit of news about Count Binface. So grab your favorite bevy and make yourself comfortable because here we go.
Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 6 and episode number. I am going to have to take a look, actually, to be honest, because it kind of slipped my mind. I was doing so well. Episode number 946 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian, and of course, as always, beaverific. Today, recording day is Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, and it is a weird and hazy day here at the Beaver Lodge. Was a little odd last night. I went out to play some tennis last night, lost again. Uh, again, I'm trying to add new things, so I do well for a stretch, and then things just disappear. And sometimes they come back, and sometimes they disappear for the rest of the day, never to be found again. And then I have to go back next time to the court and try again. And I haven't had the opportunity to play as much this year as I would like to, just weird weather and other types of obligations. Yeah, I noticed that the sky was kind of strange last night, and I hadn't actually heard about any air quality warnings, so I wasn't all that sure about that. But this morning, when I got up to prepare the show, went outside, and it had that ominous feel to the sky when there's a smoke warning thing. That appears to be going on at the moment here, according to the Weather Network. This was updated yesterday at 7:33, and it said that there was dense wildfire smoke set to impact Ontario by today. It says widespread air quality warnings are in place across Ontario caused by out of control wildfires in the northwestern part of the province. Watch the surface smoke forecast to see how conditions are expected to worsen into Wednesday. And I'm guessing that this is the surface area forecast from the Weather Network. So, since they told us to take a look at it, why not take a look at it? There you go. All right, and let's see what they had to say there. Whoops, that was not supposed to happen. Let's try. There we go. Okay, I do not think that that is the correct video all of a sudden. All right, well, that didn't work. Ah, man. Wow. Okay. That did not work at all. Oh, well. Let's try that one more time. See if it works this time when we try to give it a go. I'm so sorry about that, kids and cubs. Great way to start the show. Let's try that now.
Areas under the air quality warning have extended into the GTA as well as cottage country. Now, the reason why we're seeing these warnings is because of the active wildfires classified as out of control in northwestern Ontario, where on Monday night we saw evacuation orders. In terms of the forecast of the smoke, we're going to start to see drifting into the region because of the strong jet stream into southern Ontario as we head into Wednesday. A closer look into the timing, we can start to see the smoke building into Wednesday morning, and the abundance of that smoke, dense in nature, will start to drift over heading into Wednesday overnight.
All right, so you can see here how things, if you are in the Barrie, Toronto, Hamilton, Niagara Falls, London area, things are going to get very, very bad, extremely dense. If you're more near Owen Sound, Kindergarten, uh, um, Perry Sound, that type of thing, it's going to be pretty bad anyway. And if you are around where we are, Kingston, that type of area, it's going to be light. Um, and if what I saw outside today is light, light is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that forecast. Wow. Uncover the News says here the sky is yellow. Kit Grace Beach Life says air quality alert for Ontario today from smoke. Kit Elaine going, I wonder if Minnesota is going to issue a formal complaint again and if we're going to get hit with more tariffs because of the smoke. Ah, man. Funny. You kids. So yeah, just yeah, be careful, of course. You do not want to be outside and engage in too much heavy activity. I learned that the hard way a couple of years ago when I went out to play tennis on a day that was maybe a little smokier than I should have, and ended up praying to the porcelain gods. Not a fun experience. According to CBC News, it says Environment Canada's poor air quality warning in Toronto due to wildfire smoke could stick around until the end of the week, said a meteorologist. In a yellow level air quality warning, the Federal Weather Agency says smoke from forest fire in northwestern Ontario is causing poor air quality and reduced visibility. The smoke is affecting much of southern Ontario. The poor air quality began Tuesday night and may last through to Thursday, the weather agency says. The warning comes as the city remains under a yellow heat warning. Toronto ranked first in a list of the world's most polluted cities as of Wednesday morning, according to a global ranking by IQ Air, a Swiss air quality technology company. Quote, the air quality values have spiked quite high due to the particular matter no, sorry, due to the particulate matter from that forest fire smoke, said Environment Canada meteorologist Brian Auziak. He said the smoke will likely flush out with the shift in wind direction coming later in the week or during the weekend. Quote, as smoke levels increase, health risks increase. Limit time outdoors. Consider reducing or rescheduling outdoor sports, activities, and events, Environment Canada says. Residents may experience mild and common symptoms such as eye, nose, and throat irritation, headaches, or mild cough. More serious but less common symptoms include wheezing, chest pains, or severe cough. Those most likely to be affected by smoke include people 65 and older, pregnant people, infants and young children, people with an existing illness or chronic health condition, and people who work outdoors. While Wednesday won't be as hot as Tuesday, Oziak said morning temperatures started off at 26 Celsius and will rise to a high of 33 in Toronto. That will feel closer to 36 with humidity. Toronto came close to a record high temperature on Tuesday, set at Pearson International Airport. The temperature at Pearson Airport reached 36.2 Celsius at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, with the humidity making it feel closer to the mid 40s. Environment Canada said on its website. Tuesday was the peak of a heat wave that began Monday and may continue into Thursday or Friday. The highest temperature ever recorded for July 14th at Pearson Airport was 36.7 degrees Celsius, so it was only 0.5 degrees Celsius cooler than that on Tuesday. The hottest day of 2026 so far approached that figure when Canada Day saw a high of 36. City officials encourage people to stay inside during the heat of the day, but even after the sun goes down, the overnight low is expected to be 20 degrees Celsius on Wednesday. On Tuesday, the city kept 8 pools open up until 11:45 p.m. to provide a place to cool down late. Toronto also opened more than 500 cooling spaces, including a 24-hour cooling space at 136 Spadina Road. The city's shelter system is opening additional temporary space for people living on the street. Still, it's not easy for unhoused people to find relief in the city, says outreach worker Lorraine Lamb, and many people she works with are seeking relief in shady parks and air-conditioned spaces with limited hours. The heat climate emergency is worsening, and there are more and more people who don't have access to city spaces, she said. Toronto's heat relief measures will be in effect beyond Tuesday, should Environment Canada's forecast hold. Wednesday will be the 13th day this year that it will be above 30 degrees Celsius in Toronto. Usually the city would register just 7 days that hot by mid-July, says Environment Canada's climatologist emeritus Dave Phillips. As the heat persists, Toronto Public Health is warning that young children, the elderly, those with chronic illnesses, and the unhoused are most at risk for heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Anyone showing signs of heat stroke should call 911, it said. Symptoms of heat stroke include red and hot skin, nausea, dizziness, confusion, and change in consciousness. You can go from feeling somewhat unwell to really dangerously unwell quite quickly. I've experienced that personally when I've been on vacation south. It is not a fun experience. Please, if you can do anything to avoid it, please do so. You can go from feeling somewhat unwell to really dangerously unwell quite quickly, said the agency's Associate Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Howard Shapiro. The agency says that there were 39 heat-related emergency room visits recorded during Toronto's first heat event of the summer between June 30th and July 4th. During Environment Canada's yellow heat warning for the city, the agency is urging the public to Let's try that again. During Environment Canada's yellow heat warning for the city, the agency is urging the public to turn on air conditioning, drink water often, close their blinds, and limit exposure to the sun. Residents should wear lightweight, light-colored, and loose-fitting clothing, as well as a hat. Air quality in Toronto was also ranked as moderately risky Tuesday, Environment Canada says. And I was looking, kits and cubs, at air quality where we are. I'm going to just give you a little show of that. Here we go. This has been for the last 3 days. So yesterday when I was playing tennis around 6 p.m., that's around here, and something happened last night. It all came in because look at these bars. This is like the maximum it gets somewhere in the middle of the night, and it's decreasing a little bit. But it's still higher than it's been at any point over the past 3 days so far still this morning. So, I mean, again, blue and yellow, blue's okay. It's more than you would want, but, it's tolerable. Yellow, it's starting You can see it when you're looking outside, and when you're in the red and the orange stuff. That's looking a little nasty. I'm just saying, it's looking a little nasty. Ooh, we have some good news. It is Cassie and the Cowboys' anniversary, 31 years together. We love here at the Beaver Lodge. Sending you guys all the best. Hope that it is a wonderful occasion, and that if you happen to have things going on at any point with friends to celebrate the occasion, always make sure, of course, that you have a little moment for yourselves, because it's about love, right? But 31 years, that is definitely accomplishment. It's starting to get serious, isn't it? Oh, I'm so happy. Yay. Anniversaries make me, that makes me very, very happy indeed. I'm a sucker for love. Whoops, that was not supposed to pop up. Okay, Cassie says here, going to spend the day doing something fun. Excellent. And yes, there it goes. Have a lovely day, all. It's our anniversary today. 31 years married to the cowboy. Yay! Yeehaw! And still, you found time to pop in. What are you doing here? I'm deeply flattered. I'm deeply flattered. All right. So yeah, that is some stuff going on here. Weather-wise, of course, we have um, some weather events going on all around the country, in addition to the extreme wildfire outbreak in northwestern Ontario, where intense heat wave with temperatures near 40 degrees Celsius has triggered an exploding wildfire crisis north of the Minnesota border. Here, in that situation, there are over 160 active wildland fires across Ontario, with more than 128 concentrated in the northwest. At least 53 of these remain completely out of control. There are mandatory evacuation orders. Displaced residents are fleeing south to Thunder Bay from multiple communities, including Armstrong, White Sand First Nation, Collins First Nation, or Namegusi Sagagun, Lac des Mille Lacs First Nation, Gakijiwanung Anishinaabe Nation, Kiashke Zaging Anishinaabeg, or Gull Bay. The Ontario Provincial Police have closed several major roads, and Waba Kimi Provincial Park is entirely closed due to extreme fire hazards. It says here that a strong jet stream is carrying massive smoke plumes, giving cities like Toronto some of the worst air quality in the world. The smoke is also triggering air quality alerts across Quebec and the U.S. Midwest and Northeast. In British Columbia and Western Canada, Western Canada is under National Preparedness Level 4, which I believe... We'll just see what that means here. If there is a okay, level 4 here. Canada is at National Preparedness Level 4, indicating wildland fire behavior is significant within one or more jurisdictions, and the demand for resources is high throughout the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre. And the potential for emerging significant wildland fires is such that resource demands are expected to continue or increase. Okay. Quebec is at Agency Preparedness Level 4. Northwest Territories, Manitoba, Ontario, Newfoundland, and Labrador are at Agency Preparedness Level, or APL 3. All other agencies are at APL 2 or 1. There are ongoing requests for personnel, aircraft, and firefighting equipment through the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre. Amongst the fire management agencies at the time of this report, the United States is at Preparedness Level 4, indicating shared resources are heavily committed and there's a heavy demand for available resources. Okay. Continuing on, for British Columbia and Western Canada, it says that there's a massive upper atmospheric ridge that is bringing soaring temperatures and dry conditions from British Columbia to Saskatchewan. Recent blazes such as the Lucier River wildfire near Cranbrook and fires in the Fraser Valley have caused highway closures and localized evacuation orders. Uh, all right. In Ottawa and the Eastern Ontario region, in addition to wildfires, there's been some flooding aftermath because on Canada Day, um, Ottawa, I believe, received 167 millimeters of rain on that day. It was a one in a 200-year weather event, apparently. Um, so there has been the need for a lot of cleanup after a series of thunderstorms. The city received 5,423 reports of basement flooding and collected more than 1,700 tons of storm waste. The city's 311 line has received 5,423 service requests related to the flooding and extreme weather. Environment Canada reported 118 millimeters was recorded at the Ottawa airport on July 1st, some areas of the city receiving more than 140. Let's see. City Council received an update on the city's response to the Canada Day storm and flooding today. In a memo to Council on Saturday, Infrastructure and Water Services General Manager Tammy Rose said the city's rain gauges show the rainfall totals varied across the city from 15 millimeters at Trim Road in the east end to as much as 167 millimeters at the Britannia Station in the west end. The highest rainfall amounts were concentrated in central and western Ottawa, including Britannia, 167 millimeters, Colonnade, 151 millimeters, Nepean, 144, Mooney's Bay, 117, and St. Gabriel, 114, while many eastern and rural locations recorded substantially lower totals. This pattern demonstrates the highly localized nature of the storm, with some neighborhoods receiving more than 10 times the rainfall recorded at other locations within the city. According to the city, rainfall totals varied from 95 to 104 millimeters in Canada, 104.4 at the Walter Baker Center, 99 millimeters in Riverside South, 68 in Brewer Park, 61 at Lemieux Island, 48.4 in the Lees Avenue area, and 15 to 19 in the East End. Rose says a common storm in Ottawa between the spring and fall is often in the range of 5 to 15 millimeters of rainfall. So for those who got like 140, that's almost 10 times the amount. Wow. With peak storm intensities of 5 to 15 millimeters per hour. Rose notes Ottawa received a peak rainfall volume of 167 millimeters in 5 hours, with many areas experiencing a storm close to or exceeding a 1 in 200 year event. By comparison, some areas of Ottawa received 107 millimeters of rain on August 10th, 2023, in 5 hours, which exceeded the 1 in 100 year event. A storm on October 9th, 2017, saw peak rainfall of 142 millimeters over 24 hours, which also exceeded the 1 in 100 year event, according to the memo. The heavy rainfall on July 1st caused flooding on roads and in basements and sent millions of liters of untreated sewage flowing into the Ottawa River from the sewer system. Rose says the city's drinking water system, wastewater treatment plant, pump stations, and emergency response systems continued to function and provide core services, but the extraordinary volume and intensity of rainfall exceeded capacity. The storm sewer systems across the city were operating over capacity, resulting in some stormwater traveling across the surface rather than through the pipe system. This led to significant surface ponding in low-lying areas and a significant number of basement flooding incidents and substantial combined sewer overflow. Rose says there are several possible entry points for water to enter basements, including stormwater backing up through storm service connections, groundwater penetrating foundations through cracks and joints, and surface water entering through doors and window openings. The City of Ottawa has launched, quote, a comprehensive review of this extreme weather event to look at system performance and identify opportunities for improvement, according to Rose. The memo says staff will undertake the following activities and studies: review previous flooding studies, historical flood records, and recommendations from past events, document infrastructure and operational improvements that have been implemented, and assess how they performed during this event, prepare a summary report of flooding impacts across affected neighborhoods, including an analysis of approximately 5,500 service requests. This will be supported by an engineering consultant. Residents of the College Ward and Bay Ward filed the most requests to 311 about flooding following the storm. The city received 5,423 calls for service following the July 1 storm. The data shows there were 2,282 service requests from Ward 8 and 1,512 from Ward 9. There were also 687 service requests from Knoxdale, Merivale, and 427 from residents in Canada North. The city says 1,700 tons of storm waste has been delivered to the Trail Road Waste Facility since the storm on July 1st. A second round of storm waste collection will begin on Monday in all impacted wards. A 3-item garbage limit has been lifted for residents living in the area. Residents in Ottawa's West End continued the cleanup on Saturday. It's been heartbreaking and a whirlwind, and just trying to stay strong for my family, Megan Fife told CTV News Ottawa's Natalie Van Roy. I'm just working day to day. I can't even think beyond this afternoon. The City of Ottawa is hosting a community information session at Ben Franklin Place on Sunday. I'm just checking to see if it's this coming Sunday. Yes, it would be this coming Sunday, I believe. The city says residents and impacted by the storm can drop by between 1 and 5 p.m. to speak with city staff, the Insurance Bureau of Canada, and the Canadian Red Cross. And that's all we have for that. It would seem that Doug Ford has remembered that Ottawa exists, but it took him 6 days when he made an announcement, or it seems that Ottawa, maybe it was Ottawa Mayor who made the announcement here that there could be possible provincial and city assistance, and with some updated numbers that there are more than 4,500 flooded basements and a peak of about 36,000 Hydro Ottawa customers without power because of the storm. The Provincial Disaster Relief Program, DRAO, that Mayor Sutcliffe says the city and province are working to get the city residents access to, will be able to reimburse people for cleanup, repairing, or replacing essential property and or basic emergency expenses such as travel. Homeowners are eligible for up to $250,000, as are small businesses, farms, and non-for-profits, but it has not yet been activated. So yes, so I'm going to see here if there are more details, because the province said that it would help on the 6th and that details would come later. And that more on that that I read was the same day. So I'm just going to see if there is an update on that. Yes, there is. 14 hours ago from CBC News. The Ontario government program that's expected to go live soon for homeowners in Ottawa whose property was damaged by flooding from the powerful Canada Day storm is a helpful measure, but those deemed eligible for relief should gird themselves for a long reimbursement wait, a local MPP says. It might take months or even a year before there's any actual money flowing to homeowners, Liberal Orleans MPP Stephen Bliss said Tuesday. DRAO, which is the Disaster Relief Assistance Program, can be effective and has been an effective program for those things that aren't covered by insurance, but it is a long game. DRAO refers to the Disaster Recovery Assistance for Ontarians program. It can reimburse people for cleanup, repairing, or replacing essential property and or basic emergency expenses such as travel. It was previously triggered by local Ottawa River flooding. And there's a graph here that shows what the annual DRAO spending has been over the past while, and it has ranged from as little as $200,000 in a year in 2015, 2016, to as much as almost 18.2 million in 2019, 2020. Recently, it's been closer to in the last 3 years between 2.5 million to about $8.75 million here. CBC asked the province for a breakdown of when the program was triggered in recent years and how much it paid out after each disaster. It didn't provide that, but said it's working with the City of Ottawa to assess flood damage and identify areas affected by overflowing creeks where there may be uninsured damage that is eligible under the DRAO program. Homeowners who apply are eligible for up to $250,000, as are small businesses, farms, and nonprofits, according to what the province states online. The program is back in the news because its reactivation by the province has been hotly anticipated ever since the rainstorm saw that Ottawa pelted The rainstorm that saw Ottawa pelted by massive amounts of rain that poured into nearly 6,000 basements. On Monday, Ottawa Mayor Mark Sutcliffe was told by Ontario's Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Rob Flack, that the DRAO should be launched this week for local residents. That announcement was soon followed by a provincial statement indicating Ontario will be activating the program, though no specific timeline was provided. Quote, "We know many families are facing challenging circumstances, and I want them to know that our government is working alongside municipal partners to help ensure affected communities receive the support they need," Flack said in a statement posted on social media Monday evening. No activations were listed on the program page as of mid-afternoon Tuesday. Orleans was not hit as hard as other parts of the city by the Canada Day storm, but Blais says he's glad that nearly 2 weeks after the disaster, the province is finally taking action to help those who were affected. That did not happen after the destructive derecho that tore across eastern Ontario in 2022, leaving many farmers and homeowners in the lurch and paying out of pocket for tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage, Blais said. According to the program guidelines, damage caused by sewer backup is not generally eligible According to the program guidelines, damage caused by sewer backup is not generally eligible, though the province does make an exception for low-income households. For a two-person household, the cap is combined income of $38,682 per year. Quote, "I could anticipate this being a major issue for homeowners in Ottawa," Blais said of the general exclusion of sewer backups. Secondary residences such as cottages are not eligible for any DRAO coverage as the program is intended for primary residences. DRAO is meant to return a damaged property to a basic standard, not for making improvements according to the guidelines. For example, the province won't pay for you to restore landscaping, fencing, or retaining walls. Financial assistance under the program is subject to caps and deductibles, and not everything is covered. Appliances such as furnaces, water heaters, refrigerators, freezers, and laundry machines are eligible. But lost or damaged personal items such as jewelry, antiques, cell phones, and sports equipment are not. Activities and expenses that are covered include cleanup, disinfection, and disposal of affected property, temporary living expenses for accommodations and meals during evacuation, emergency clothing, boarding of pets at kennels, and in the immediate days after the cleaning out of your home, and structural expenses, including the repair of septic tanks and leaching beds. Again, if you want a more detailed list of coverage expenses, there are some guidelines that are available online for that. The exact date on which the province officially announces DRAO has kicked in is important because people will then have 122 calendar days from that date to apply, so keep watching the news. Planning to file a civil suit to recover losses related to the disaster? Don't withhold that information from your DRAO application, or else your application might be denied and you might also be ordered to reimburse any DRAO money you got, the province's guidelines warn. Don't be surprised if an adjuster requests to visit your property for the purpose of assessing your application, because that can happen. And finally, if there's one phrase that gets mentioned, perhaps more than anything else in the province's instructions for DRAO applicants, it's this: attach receipts. Sutcliffe has said to expect several motions at Wednesday morning's council meeting to provide further help, such as waiving building fees to repair flooded basements. On Tuesday, the mayor signaled the city is partnering with the Canadian Red Cross on a series of steps to help flood victims, including support from experts with insurance claims, access to engineers and renovation specialists, and other social and human supports as residents continue to navigate this very difficult situation. So that's a little bit what's going on in the national capital area. And so that's the general overview of things having to do with flooding and wildfires in Canada. I'm sure that there's probably a lot more because there was flooding in Manitoba as well. I'm just going to take a look here at seeing if there's any news at the current situation, because I believe that there is a situation that is still persisting. And I cannot seem to bring it up. So let's try this way. According to CTV News, the Canadian Press, here it says that the city of Brandon says that the river retreated by about 8 centimeters overnight, but still has a ways to go. That was something published yesterday. Levels climbed just over 2 meters in less than a week and peaked on Sunday night. The city says it reinforced flood barriers that they are working to limit any damage. Other communities in Manitoba have been hit hard by flooding this year after two major rainfalls. Flooding has closed the regional hospital in Dauphin for months, and other towns, including Swan River, are also looking to recover. There's also a flood relief program that's been announced there. This is from Justin Fiaccioni of CBC News that says that the Manitoba Flood Recovery Program announced Friday afternoon. Yes, so just this past Friday afternoon, will provide one-time grants for homeowners and tenants without adequate insurance to cover the cost of their damage. The maximum amount of assistance provided would be based on the assessed value of the home or the cost of the damage, whichever is lesser. Christine Stevens, director of the Provincial Emergency Management Organization, said at a news conference with Premier Wapkanu. The program is welcome news to Garth Killerby, who estimates the cost of the damage to his Grosse Ile home is in the range of $250,000 to $350,000. He's only covered for $25,000 for sewer backup. Let's see. However, as things currently stand, it appears not everyone affected by the flooding will be eligible for the program. And it says here, for example, people that live in the municipality of Ethelbert, which was not included in the list of municipalities eligible for the recovery program, well, they would not be getting help. According to a provincial bulletin posted late Friday afternoon, Western Manitoba residents in the municipalities of Mountain, Minnetonus, Bozeman, Swan Valley West, Roblin, Duck Mountain, the town of Swan River, and the community of Camperville are eligible in connection with flooding that took place from June 6th to 8th and from June 28th to July 1st. In Manitoba's Interlake and Eastern regions, residents of the municipalities of Rosser, Rockwood, Woodlands, St. Francois Xavier, St. Andrews, the towns of Stonewall, Tulane, Winnipeg Beach, and the village of Dunatar are eligible in connection with flood activity taking place from June 9th to 10th and July 28th to July 1st. Quote, I would like to know how they came about the eligibility because we have all been affected, said one resident. We were stranded here where we couldn't leave our area because the roads and everything were washed away. And then they also are wondering why Dauphin, where we lost our major hospital, why that wasn't included. Something's not right there. They believe that. It says that Dauphin's regional health center has been shut down due to flood damage, leaving 54 patients displaced. Provincial government spokesperson told CBC News in an email Saturday that it is ensuring communities impacted by the recent extreme flooding events are receiving the support they need and are eligible for disaster financial assistance, including residents of the regional municipalities of Dauphin and Ethelbert. So it looks like if you're not on the list now, don't give up hope. There might be something coming. More information regarding additional supports for the Manitoba Flood Recovery Program will be shared soon, the spokesperson wrote. Price said he'll need assistance funding after checking his basement the morning of July 1st, where he found things floating up into a meter of water. This is another person, James Price, who was interviewed for the article here. He estimates the damage to his home to be at a modest $150,000, and that his insurance company is only wanting to pay $10,000 for the sewer backup. So again, there, if you're in Manitoba, there might be some disaster relief waiting for you. All right, all of that to catch up on how things are doing, and I kind of inserted that into the intro. So I'm going to take this moment here to thank our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and Psychic Tarot.ca for offering us some support since day one. If you would like to offer some support as well, you can scan that QR code here that appeared. That will bring you to our coffee page where you can offer us an enthusiastic expression of encouragement if you like what we do. And to ask you, because I just got right into it with the weather stuff, how's your mental health today? I am doing very well. Despite the fact that I lost at tennis last night, I got to play against my friend James, who I hadn't seen in a while, because life, I had to take him out of circulation, and he wrote me last week and said, "Hey, I'm ready to play again." And so my first opportunity, I definitely took a chance. We're usually pretty evenly matched, but like I said, I'm trying new things, so taking more risks and sometimes paying the price. But it was a good game. we had lots of games go to deuce and lengthy deuces and whatnot. He just ended up being on the winning side of them more often. Like I said, it's just always fun because we're at the same level, and it's always a challenge, and it's always a tough match, and it helps me with practicing remaining cool under pressure. Because I need that sometimes. I'll tell you that. We watched the World Cup match yesterday between Spain and France, and um, I think based on the level of play, not that I know much about it, but it seems that the deserving team did win yesterday. With the other semifinal today, England and Argentina, I believe, at 3 p.m. Eastern time for those who are interested in that. Um, Need to issue a gentle correction on myself because yesterday when I was reporting on the bridge, I reported that the money on the US side is going to the state of Michigan. That is incorrect. The money was supposed to be going to the state of Michigan. And according to this deal, the money, whatever little of it there will be, because again, during the first 15 years is when the overwhelming where there's at least opportunity to actually turn a net profit, and that the obligation curve in terms of servicing of the debt is at its highest, and whether the bridge is used or not, it does need to be maintained. So there's cash going out one way or the other. But it seems that when it comes to that, that is actually going to be going to a U.S. federal government agency to reinvest in economic development. So it would seem that this might have been more all along about screwing over the current Democrats, because they are the government in the state now, in the state of Michigan, not letting them have some money. How even though the money would not have been coming to them for a long time yet, but that allows them to say, "Hey, I got a better deal." Allows them to say, "I got a better deal than that Obama did," because the deal was signed in 2015, and we couldn't get the bridge. It was Republicans at the state, and they didn't want to help pay for the bridge because, well, Republicans in the state and maroon and all that kind of stuff, right? So we said, well, then screw it. We'll just build it ourselves, and then we'll repay ourselves with the tolls, and when with the tolls, happen, um, and we're repaid, then we'll share the toll money. And President Obama was okay with that, it would seem, and the project went ahead. So it seems that this is maybe about socking it to the Democrats in Michigan right now, and undoing a thing that Obama did. Pretty much just like the Iran thing, the folly that Trump has gotten himself into. And lots of parallels with Trump settling for a whole lot less than he claimed at the outset that he wanted. So it might have been that petty and might have had nothing to do with us whatsoever. How's that? For you. So yeah, I found that out yesterday upon listening to a few other things. Some sad news to report. An important passing came 2 days ago. John Hamm, not the actor, but the former Premier of Nova Scotia, passed away at the age of 88. Says here, according to Amy Smith of CBC News, former Nova Scotia Premier John Hamm, the Pictou County physician who prescribed belt tightening for the province's books, has died at age 88. They have a photo of him here from earlier times, back in 2006. So about 20 years ago. So probably in his late 60s here. But that is Premier John Hamm. There. Straight-laced and soft-spoken, he was first elected to the legislature in 1993 and served as Nova Scotia's 25th premier from 1999 to 2006. He first led a majority government before being held to minority 4 years later. In a statement, Monday Premier Tim Houston said Hamm, quote, made an indelible mark on the lives of thousands of Nova Scotians. I will remember Premier Hamm for his strength, his quiet dignity, and for his determination to improve the lives of the people he served, said Houston. At this difficult time, I send my most sincere condolences to his wife Janesta and their children John, Jeffrey, and Jennifer, their families, and to all who loved Premier John Hamm. Longtime progressive conservative organizer Chris Lydon got his start volunteering on Hamm's 1998 election campaign and went to work for him in the Premier's office after Hamm formed government. Quote, he was completely devoid of vice and distraction. He was exceedingly kind. His bedside manner was obviously well learned from his former profession and translated really well to the hustings, said Lydon. Getting to work and volunteer for Hamm was the chance to be around someone, quote, truly, uniformly great, said Lydon. Hamm's former chief of staff, Jamie Bailey, called him a true gentleman. Quote, I never saw him lose his temper. I never saw him say an unkind word about anybody, not his most vicious political opponent or anyone who had let him down. He saw the good in people. He had a unique ability to bring that out in people. He was in many ways a very unique leader. The upgrade to the province's community college system during Hamm's time in office was his greatest legacy, said Bailey. Quote, he was a big believer in the trades, and what he loved about the Nova Scotia Community College was that it existed in so many small communities around Nova Scotia. Away from ballot boxes and budget debates, Hamm's personality was perhaps best captured by a single photo op, smiling politicians posing at Halifax Midtown Tavern back in 1996, glasses raised in a toast. But unlike the rest, his beverage of choice was not beer. And lo and behold, what does John Hamm have to drink to connect with the good people and the blue collar workers of Nova Scotia? A good, solid glass of milk. You can see it here in that photo. Former Quebec Premier Jean Charest recalled during a video tribute to him in 2006. And as Nova Scotians would learn over his 13 years in politics, the milk was on brand, as was the sweater vest he almost always wore under his blazer. Leaning on his traditional values, Hamm opposed Sunday shopping, believing the day belonged to families, while he initiated a 2004 plebiscite that the no side narrowly won. A court decision overturned the ban 2 years later, opening retail doors 7 days a week. He also ordered the removal of about 1,000 video lottery terminals from bars and taverns in an effort aimed at curbing gambling addiction. He resisted a total ban, arguing that would drive the industry underground where it could not be regulated. As well, Hamm ended the province's use of public-private partnerships, school constructions, arguing the buy now, pay later model would burden future generations and returned the province to the traditional model of publicly owned infrastructure. In 1999, he ran on a campaign promise to open more hospital beds and end the heavy subsidies at Sydney Steel. Once in office, he moved to get the government out of the steel business. After a final attempt at a private sale failed, the plant was shuttered for good, ending nearly a century of steelmaking in Cape Breton. While healthcare was a major plank in his campaign, his government faced tense clashes with the sector. In 2000, paramedics in a contract dispute parked their ambulances, lights flashing and signs blaring, at the gates of Province House before walking off the job in an 18-hour strike. A year later, the Hamm government tried to take away the right to strike for approximately 9,000 nurses and healthcare workers with Bill 68. The legislation sparked mass protests at the legislature and threats of widespread resignations, eventually forcing a standoff that saw the province revoke the bill's most contentious powers. However, one of his biggest accomplishments came after a high-stakes battle with Ottawa over offshore oil and gas revenues. The 2005 Atlantic Accord allowed Nova Scotia to keep 100% of offshore resource revenues without a government clawback and transfer payments. During negotiations, Hamm's quiet, methodical style stood in sharp contrast to that of his provincial counterpart, Danny Williams, who removed Canadian flags from provincial buildings in Newfoundland and Labrador in protest. True to his mantra of fiscal restraint, Hamm pledged every penny of the Accord's $830 million windfall would be used to pay down the province's debt of $12 billion at the time. It was a key part of his push to have Nova Scotia live within its means and return to balanced budgets after years of big spending. He was a true fiscal conservative who never veered from his prescription for his vision of a healthier province. After politics, Hamm was named an officer of the Order of Canada in 2009, described as a, quote, model of public service and leadership. So, a good way to remember John Hamm. The Prime Minister of Canada had a couple of words to say about him as well. And we will bring that to you right here and right now. Today, I join Canadians in mourning the loss of the Honourable John Hamm, a dedicated public servant and staunch advocate for Nova Scotia. Before becoming the province's 25th Premier, Dr. Hamm spent more than 30 years caring for Nova Scotians as a family doctor. It was his strong leadership at the Aberdeen Hospital and the Nova Scotia Medical Society that inspired Nova Scotians to encourage him to run for office. As the member of the Legislative Assembly for Pictou Centre and as Premier, Dr. Hamm was known for his commitment to Nova Scotia. He believed in outcomes over politics and fought relentlessly to secure a stronger, more prosperous future for the province. He renegotiated the Atlantic Accord, securing a greater share of offshore energy revenues for Nova Scotia. In 2002, he delivered the province's first balanced budget in 40 years, restoring the province's fiscal stability and investing millions in health care and the Nova Scotia Community College. After leaving politics, Dr. Hamm continued to serve in his community. His contributions were recognized with numerous honors, including being named as an Officer of the Order of Canada. I offer my condolences to Dr. Hamm's family, friends, colleagues, and Nova Scotians on their loss. All right. And just see if there's anything specific, maybe from the Halifax newspaper here, Chronicle Herald. There we go. Okay. This is Ali Bose. So this will be a little more local. Former Nova Scotia Premier John Hamm has died at the age of 88. Premier Tim Houston issued a statement Monday afternoon saying he will remember Hamm for, quote, his strength, his quiet dignity, and for his determination to improve the lives of the people he served. Prior to being Premier, Hamm worked as a family doctor in Pictou County before entering politics as MLA for Pictou Centre in 1993. In 1999, he became leader of the Nova Scotia Progressive Conservative Party and served as Premier from 1999 until his retirement in 2006. Following his time in politics, Hamm was made an Officer of the Order of Canada for his work as Premier and his efforts in healthcare, serving as chair of the Assisted Human Reproduction Canada. In his statement, Houston highlighted Hamm's legacy as a doctor and public servant, pointing to some of his achievements as Premier. He made a landmark investment in Nova Scotia Community College, calling it an investment in the province's future. Houston also pointed to the successful negotiation of the Canada-Nova Scotia Atlantic Accord, which oversaw the development of offshore petroleum resources, calling it, quote, among Hamm's most significant achievements. He was a tireless champion for the province, and a successful campaign for fairness ensured Nova Scotians would be the primary beneficiaries of the province's resources. Houston offered condolences to Hamm's family, adding that flags on all provincial buildings will be at half-mast in honor of the former premier. Sticking with Atlantic Canada, yesterday we reported that there had been a by-election in Prince Edward Island, and that the PEI Greens had actually taken the seat. Voter turnout in that by-election was 60.87%. As we mentioned, the Liberal leader, Robert Mitchell, this was his second run since he became a Liberal leader to try to win a seat in the legislature. It did not work out for him. There seems to be some indication based on his words that he might be having a meeting soon to perhaps discuss a transition out of that position. It could also be a meeting that confirms that the party, yes, still wants them, even though he tried twice. The first one was not a riding that he was expected to win. It was a progressive conservative stronghold. But this one, given that it was a riding that went back and forth between progressive conservatives and liberals, and progressive conservatives are not particularly popular, they looked at this as a real opportunity. And so for the Green Party candidate to sort of come from behind, there's not a lot of public opinion polling in Prince Edward Island, but there has been one poll that came out not too long ago, indicating that if an election were held today, at the time that poll came out, that the Greens would actually form the next government on Prince Edward Island, which would make it the first time that the Green Party would form a government in Canada. There has been a balance of power situation in British Columbia before, I believe. But this would be the first time. So this victory seems to indicate or seems to confirm what that public polling has been indicating because, she came out of nowhere and defeated. I don't know if she came out of nowhere. She might have been very well known in her community, but defeated a party leader here. Um, says uh, the result was no doubt a disappointment for Mitchell. This is the second unsuccessful attempt by Mitchell to gain a seat in the PEI legislature. Mitchell ran in a by-election in Georgetown, Ponal in December and lost to progressive conservative Brendan Curran. Willow's win means that Cornwall Meadowbank district has been represented in the legislature by three different parties over the last decade. The district has been thought of as a liberal stronghold, having been represented for multiple decades by former MLA Ronnie McKinley. Mark McLean's by-election win in 2021 was a breakthrough for the PCs under Dennis King. Speaking to reporters at a watch party at her Green Party campaign office, Willows suggested voters in the district often choose candidate over party. Cornwall Meadowbank is an incredibly loyal district, and they are a group of people who vote for the person. They wanted to choose someone who they could get behind. Willows said voters brought up healthcare most frequently at the doors. Affordability concerns were also brought up, along with concerns about the province's growing deficit. With young kids, that's a big issue for me. I want to make sure that our province is left in a good fiscal state so that they have something that they can depend on, Willows said. Willows, currently an employee of Health PEI, said she's not sure how her life would change on Tuesday. I truly have actually no idea. Green leader Matt McCarling chalked up the win for his party to Willow's connection to voters. Quote, I've campaigned with a lot of people in my time running for politics. I don't know whether I've campaigned with somebody more engaging, more endearing, more committed, and more determined than Tate Willows, McFarland said. McFarland also said the Green win was also a sign of voter malaise with the Rob Lance-led progressive conservative government. Quote, people are unhappy with how the government has been governing in this province for a while now, and they don't see change to a liberal candidate or to a liberal representative as being perhaps enough to move the needle. Recent polling from Narrative Research has shown the Greens as the top choice of PEI voters among the major parties. McFarland said the by-election win is a sign that his party has the momentum to form the next government. The by-election win has echoes of Green optimism in the lead up to 2019. Green candidate Hannah Bell won a by-election in Charlottetown Parkdale in 2017. What followed were a series of polls that showed then Green leader Peter Bevan Baker as the most popular choice for Premier. I remember that time. In the end, the Progressive Conservatives were the victors in the 2019 election, riding their own wave of momentum after the selection of Dennis King as their leader earlier that year. McFarlane pointed to signs of Green momentum on Monday night, but also said the Green Party is more experienced this time than it was in 2019. Quote, we had more volunteers on the ground in this campaign than we ever had in any by-election before. That's a huge part of success in politics, is having the ground game in place, getting out the vote. Willow's win brings the total number of Greens MLAs to 4. The Liberal opposition currently has 4 MLAs, while the governing PCs have 18, and there's currently 1 independent. And because of that situation, kits and cubs, things have gotten a little interesting. It would seem that when the legislature reconvenes, that the PEI Greens will seek to be named the official opposition rather than the Liberals, because they both have 4 seats. But because the leader of the Green Party is actually in the legislature with a seat, and the leader of the Liberal Party is not, they are claiming that that would be the basis upon which to determine that the Green caucus deserves to be the official opposition moving forward. They potentially have a case. They potentially have a case for that. According to Thing Nguyen of CBC News, He wrote this article about changing voting trends. It says that Prince Edward Island's Green Party by-election wins signals voters are becoming more willing to break from traditional party loyalties, says UPEI political scientist Don Deserud. On Monday, Green candidate Tate Willows won District 16 Cornwall Meadowbank with 1,184 votes, nearly 40% of the total. Quote, it's sending a message that voters are willing to look at other options, that the old pattern of the entrenched voting is shifting, Deserud told Island Morning host Mitch Cormier Tuesday. Deserud said the district had been considered a Liberal stronghold before shifting to the former PC MLA Mark McLean, who died in March, as he was a strong local candidate. But Cornwall Meadowbank has also become one of the fastest growing areas on PEI, bringing in many new voters. Quote, so these new voters don't have the same entrenched voting behavior that we had before, and they're looking at other options. Willows finished 229 votes ahead of Liberal candidate Robert Mitchell, who received 955 votes. Voter turnout was about 60%, the highest among recent PEI by-elections since 2023. Deserud said turnout has generally been declining, but this result suggests renewed engagement among voters. Willows said she noticed that energy while campaigning. Quote, there was definitely a change when we were at the doors. People were more excited, people were more open. The win gives the Greens 4 seats in the legislature, matching the Liberals. Um, Willows, who works for Health PEI, said her professional background has focused on upstream interventions, trying to keep people healthy and out of the system before problems become more serious. Quote, a lot of my background is in that collaborative space of providing upstream intervention, and I think it's important that we bring those conversations to the legislature, she said. She said those conversations need to extend beyond healthcare to issues like housing and education. Willows also said becoming an MLA while raising a family was part of the reason she decided to run again. Quote, for me, it's about showing our kids that this is possible, that there's someone there who really understands what they're going through and is going to push for what they need. Because often we don't see that voice represented in the legislature. Green Party leader Matt McFarland said the win strengthens the party's case that it can be more than just an opposition voice. Quote, it's my intention to bring the Green Party into government and move the needle forward on so many issues that previous governments have either been unable or unwilling to address. He added that having 4 MLAs will allow the party to push for more resources. Quote, we need more space, practically speaking, in our office, and we also need more time in the legislature to bring forward the agenda that Islanders want us to bring forward. Asked whether the Greens will challenge the Liberals for official opposition status now that the two parties are tied in seats, McFarland said, quote, everything is on the table. The result also creates challenges for the Liberals and the governing PCs. Deserud said the Liberals must decide whether to continue with Robert Mitchell as leader after a second unsuccessful attempt to win a seat. Quote, best thing for the Green Party is for the Liberals to be distracted by a leadership campaign and not be an effective opposition, he said. The parties are incredibly impatient. They want quick fixes. They want this white knight champion to come in and solve all their problems. That's a bad strategy. You need to let people really grow into the job. At the same time, he said the result will prompt lots of internal discussions for Premier Rob Lance and the PCs. Quote, I was thinking of a couple of months ago that we'd be into a fall election, but now I think that's definitely off the table, he said. But will they wait all the way until October 2027? I don't know, because they have to look ahead and say, are things going to get better or are things going to get worse? Mm. And it seems that that is not the only moving and shaking going on in Canada at the moment. Uh, we have the Ontario Liberal leadership race, and a couple of people that were looking at throwing their hat in, deciding to change their minds. The first one is Rob Sujanek, who announced on July 5th, today I made the difficult decision to suspend my campaign for the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. Thank you to all who were part of this journey. The work that inspired this campaign will continue. And he writes, dear friends, when I entered this leadership race, I did so because I believed Ontarians deserved a government that can create opportunity, strengthen public services, and help people get ahead. During this campaign, I have had the privilege of meeting Liberals from every corner of Ontario. Their passion, optimism, and dedication have only strengthened my belief that our party has an essential role to play in building a better future. Today, after considerable reflection and conversations with my family, supporters, and colleagues, I have made the difficult decision to suspend my campaign for leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. To everyone who volunteered, donated, encouraged me, and believed in this campaign, thank you. Your confidence has been deeply humbling. This campaign is ending, but the work that inspired it will continue. I remain fully committed to serving my constituents, supporting our caucus, and working alongside our next leader to hold this government accountable and present Ontarians with a hopeful, credible alternative. With many thanks, Rob Sujanek, MPP. So he is out of the race, and there's article about it in a CP24 by Brian Aguilar, and hopefully there'll be a little bit more details there. The rookie legislator entered the leadership race in May with a pledge to rebuild the party and campaign on affordability measures and improving the education and healthcare systems. Which means there are 4 remaining leadership candidates: former MP Nadveep Bains, Toronto MPP Lee Fairclough, housing advocate Eric Lombardi, and former political staffer Dylan Mirando. Party members will vote between November 9th and 20th, and the next leader will be announced on November 21st. So not too much additional information here from that source. Looking at the Canadian Press's Alison Jones, maybe there is a little bit more. Let's see. Nope. Nothing more though, too. Just some quick short blurbs. Another person who was exploring the position is son of the former mayor of Toronto, John Tory Jr., as reported in the Toronto Sun by Jane Stevenson here. Less than 2 weeks after he declared he was seeking the federal, oh, sorry, this is not for the Liberal leadership, sorry, of the Ontario Liberals. This is to seek the, because Nate Erskine-Smith has resigned, and he was resigning to become the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party, after which he was running for the nomination in Scarborough Southwest for the upcoming by-election, because that seat was made free by Dolly Begum, who left it to run in a federal by-election to go with the Liberals. She was the deputy premier of the provincial NDPs. She resigned her seat, ran in a by-election for the seat that was vacated by Bill Blair, I think it is, not Christopher Freeland, but Bill Blair. And she got to the House of Commons. So that seat was available provincially. Nate Erskine-Smith decided he was going to seek the Liberal nomination to be the candidate to run in that by-election. He did not get the nomination. He has decided that he will run in municipal politics anyway. So this person, John Tory Jr., had announced that he was going to be seeking the Liberal nomination in that Beaches East York riding that just became free because Nate Erskine-Smith vacated the seat. Said the 47-year-old son of former Toronto Mayor John Tory said in a statement released Monday that timing and longer running candidates led to his decision. I have decided to suspend my campaign to be the Liberal MP nominee for Beaches East York, wrote Tory on a campaign website. The tight timeline of this campaign, combined with the strong support earned by the other candidates from their years of hard work, do not provide a realistic or viable path to success for me. The best thing for our party, for myself and my family, and for Beaches East York is for me to focus all of my energy on ensuring a Liberal MP is elected in this summer's by-election. The person nominated will have my full support, and I will do everything I can to help them. So that's another person who has passed on the opportunity. If we are looking at the mayorship of Toronto, it seems that Michael Ford Jr. Is it Michael Ford Jr.? Yes, has decided that after initially expressing a strong interest in the race, that he is not going to seek candidacy in the municipal election, according to Joanna Lavoie and Beatrice Weisman. It says here, quote, after some very long and thoughtful consideration with my close family, I have decided not to seek my candidacy for mayor of Toronto in the 2026 municipal election. Ford went on to say that he loves the city and has, quote, always had a passion for public service. Quote, I will remain very active in the city that I love and lend my support in whichever way makes Toronto a more safe, affordable, and world-class city. There's perhaps, because I saw some images related to that, I do not know if they are real, but assuming that they are real, Michael Ford Jr. Might be rather in love and living his best life at the moment, and maybe doesn't want to break his current stride in order to run for mayor. Um, Interestingly enough, somebody that has become a little well known over the years has decided that maybe she can come back again. Because I always say that expression, right? You can't go back again. Well, one person is trying to see if she can, and that would be former Ontario Liberal leader and former mayor of Mississauga, Bonnie Crombie. It seems that she wants to run again in Mississauga. And I believe specifically for the seat she vacated as mayor. Let's go to the Toronto Star for this one because I believe they have some quotables from her in this one. This is from Alicia Hasham. There have been only 3 mayors in Mississauga since 1978: Hazel McCallion, Bonnie Crombie, and Carolyn Parrish. McCallion died in 2023, aged 101, but her formidable presence still looms over the mayoral race between her mentee, Crombie, and her adversary, Parrish. After departing in her third term for a failed attempt to take down After departing in her third term for a failed attempt to take down Premier Doug Ford as a Liberal leader, Crombie cited McCallion in an exclusive interview about why she deserves her old job back. Quote, "If there's one thing I learned from Hazel McCallion besides do your homework, it's fiscal discipline," Crombie told the Star Monday. "You need more discipline to keep taxes at a manageable level." After resigning her candidacy at the Mississauga Elections Office on Tuesday morning, Crombie has joined the race against incumbent Parrish, elected mayor in June 2024 by-election, along with councillors Alvin Tedyo and Deepika Tamarla. As Crombie puts it, Parrish raised property taxes too high and is missing when it comes to attending the myriad of cultural events in the city and in-person trade and political trips beyond Mississauga. Mississauga property taxes, which include a portion set by the city and a portion set by Peel Region, went up by 6.1% in 2023, 7.2% in 2024, and in 2025 it went up 9.2%, which the city stressed was largely due to, quote, a historic increase in the Peel Regional Police budget. In 2026, the increase was 5.2%. I've looked around and I've witnessed firsthand that the city lacks direction, is adrift, it lacks leadership, and quite frankly, said Crombie, I'm back because I think I have the leadership skills, the experience, the vision, and frankly, the energy to get the city back on track. When presented with Crombie's attacks on her time as mayor, Parrish said in an email they are, quote, fabrications from a failed Liberal leader who is now attempting to treat Mississauga as some kind of political fallback position. Shame. These claims do not deserve a response. Crombie says she has, quote, always been passionate and committed to Mississauga. Quote, when I left briefly, it was to elevate our needs at the province, she said. I brought all that learning experience back. She said she isn't concerned that she did not win the provincial seat in Mississauga Streetsville last year, citing her overwhelming mayoral win in 2022. Quote, I'm not reliving past battles. I'm looking forward, she said. In a statement Tuesday, Tedyo, the runner-up to the 2024 by-election, took aim at both Parrish and Crombie. Mississauga wants, quote, fresh ideas and new leadership and not more of the same, he said. Crombie specifically took aim at Parrish over her criticism of the rising police budget and the burden it places on property taxpayers, something Crombie herself expressed concern about during her tenure as mayor. Crombie accused Parrish of, quote, abdicating her role on the police board instead of being supportive and collaborative with the police force to shape their budget. Chief Nish Duraipa has been a model chief, she said. I have nothing but praise for Peel Regional Police and our chief and his team of deputies. Parrish has defended her decision to step down from the Police Services Board as a way to more freely criticize unprecedented growth in the Peel Police budget, increased by 70% since 2019, and the cost it comes at for residents. She also has argued that Mississauga is paying an unfair amount of the shared bill compared to Brampton, and is exploring whether Mississauga should have its own police force. She has denied being anti-police, noting her father was a Toronto police officer. Both Crombie and Parrish agree the police funding formula should change. They've also both looked at ways to extract Mississauga from regional governance, something McCallion long pushed for, and which the province briefly considered before scrapping the idea in 2023. Crombie said she isn't concerned about her ability to work with Ford, who launched attack ads at her during the last provincial election, and said he would send an army to thwart a return to power for her in Mississauga. Quote, "We had a good working relationship when I was mayor, and we will again because we want the same thing," she said, pointing to Ford's collegial relationship with past political foes, Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown, Vaughan Mayor Stephen Del Duca, and Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow. Crombie said she hopes that Crombie says she hopes that will be a more competitive mayoral race than Mississauga has had since her first run for mayor in 2014, will lead to higher voter turnout. Quote, "Competitive races are very exciting. I'm not the incumbent and I'm not even the front runner, so I think this will be a very, very interesting and exciting race," she said. So there you have it, kids and cubs. Bonnie Crombie exploring whether or not she can go back home again and become mayor. So lots of moving and shaking all across Canada. So we've talked about wildfires and floods and um, a bridge and PEI maybe going green and the comings and goings in the Ontario Liberal leadership race and the federal upcoming by-election in Beaches, East York, and Toronto and Mississauga City Halls. That's a lot of stuff already. And now we get to some of the juicy stuff. Because, when I serve up a meal, it's a tasting menu. Lots of courses. Last week we were talking about the Prime Minister being in Europe, of course. Left the day after he made the announcement that the big submarine contract was going to go to ThyssenKrupp, the German and Norwegian co-bid. Asked specifically if he felt he needed to make that decision going to the summit. The Prime Minister said that he didn't, but it is certainly going to help with the summit in terms of advancing Canada's position, given that we have made this decision and that we're showing that we are taking greater responsibility and playing a bigger role. Of course, announcing that we were going to extend Operation Unifier to 2031 also probably played a very big role in that. In addition to that, having NATO announce that it was going to use a global eye on the Bombardier planes as its fleet for AWACs, surveillance planes, was also a big win for the Prime Minister on this trip when he was at NATO. But there's still a couple of additional things that came out of that meeting, and so let's put it out there. First of all, there was the Ankara Summit Declaration that the heads of state agreed to, and that one reads, quote, "We, the heads of state and government of the North Atlantic Alliance, have gathered in Ankara to reaffirm our ironclad commitment to our collective defense under Article 5 of the Washington Treaty and to the transatlantic bond. An attack on one is an attack on all. Our unity, solidarity, and collective strength remain the foundation of peace, security, and prosperity for the 1 billion citizens in our alliance of free and democratic nations. We remain committed to our 360-degree approach to deterrence and defense." 2. To counter the long-term threat Russia poses to Euro-Atlantic security and stability and the persistent threats of terrorism, allies are delivering on the Hague defense commitment. In 2025, European allies in Canada increased their investments in core defense requirements by more than $139 billion. Our investments are delivering the capabilities we need while strengthening our industrial base and resilience. Today in Ankara, we announced more than $50 billion in new procurements and commit to expanding collective manufacturing capacity and working with industry to accelerate innovation. We will continue our work to eliminate defense trade barriers among allies and leverage NATO's partnerships to maximize defense industrial depth cooperation. 3. We are building the future, a stronger Europe in a stronger NATO, a modernized alliance. European allies and Canada, working with the United States, are assuming greater responsibility for the alliance's defense. NATO's deterrence and defense rest on an approximate mix of nuclear, conventional, and missile defense capabilities, complemented by space and cyber assets. We are committed to maintaining our combat advantage. We are investing in our ability to deploy, enable, and sustain our armed forces and deliver our capability targets in all domains, including in deep precision strike, integrated air and missile defense, uncrewed systems, cutting edge technologies, and intelligence capabilities. We are developing an interoperable transatlantic warfighting cloud and adopting powerful AI models. 4. Ukraine contributes to transatlantic security, and allies stand united in our unwavering support for Ukraine in defending its freedom, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. European allies and Canada now finance the vast majority of security assistance to Ukraine through bilateral and multilateral means. Allies underscore that this support must be equitable, predictable, and sustainable in the long term. For 2026, allies pledge 70 billion euros in military equipment, assistance, and training for Ukraine and affirm their sovereign commitments to sustaining at least equivalent levels in 2027. To this end, we welcome the European Union's decision to provide multi-year funding to Ukraine through the Ukraine Support Loan. 5. The alliance continues to respond and adapt to the strategic competition, pervasive instability, hybrid threats, and recurrent shocks that define our broader security environment. Allies reiterate that Iran must never have a nuclear weapon and call on Iran to fully respect freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. And finally, 6, we express our appreciation to the generous hospitality extended to us by Turkey. We look forward to our next meeting. In addition to the joint declaration, there was a news release that came out of this stating that the Prime Minister secured new defense partnerships from the 2026 NATO summit. It says here, over the past year, Canada has undertaken a generational transformation of our defense posture through historic investments, major reforms, and stronger partnerships with our allies. As a result, Canada is a stronger, more capable member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization with greater ability to lead and advance the alliance's mission of collective security. Today, the Prime Minister, this was on July 8th, Mark Carney concluded his participation at the 2026 NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey. At the summit, Canada and our allies signed a joint declaration reaffirming their commitment to NATO and to transatlantic security. Canada is on a clear path to meet NATO's target of investing 5% of GDP in defense by 2035. We are moving fast, making ambitious and strategic defense investments, including a new submarine fleet, the world's second largest fleet of icebreakers, and new aircraft, missiles, and cyber defenses. To strengthen collective defense and security, Prime Minister Carney announced a series of new investments and initiatives to build up domestic and allied defense industrial capacity, reinforce deterrence along NATO's eastern flank, support Ukraine, and mobilize private capital in support of shared security priorities. So, in order to do that, there was a whole bunch of things that happened. First, there was an agreement in principle with Telesat for something called ESCPP to utilize Telesat Lightspeed to provide sovereign, reliable, and continuous military satellite communications in the Arctic. There was an $800 million contract about with Norwegian company Kongsberg Defence and Aerospace to procure joint strike missiles, a type of long-range missile which will be integrated into future fighter aircraft for the Royal Canadian Air Force. There is an upgraded procurement strategy for the light utility vehicle project to immediately limit the tender to 2 Canadian defense industry suppliers to deliver 1,600 to 2,100 vehicles and 400 to 500 light utility trailers for the militarized portion of the Canadian Armed Forces. Canada has agreed to open technical negotiations to join the NATO Innovation Sub-Fund, which aims to develop emerging and advanced technologies that are important for NATO's defense and security, while giving Canadian innovators opportunities to address capital, strategic networks, and transatlantic markets. And Canada will host the 2027 NATO Industry Forum to strengthen cooperation between allies and industry to advance defense innovation and industrial capacity across NATO. And finally, here it says that there are launches, as we mentioned before, the launch of negotiations with Turkey on a comprehensive Canada-Turkey free trade agreement, with bilateral trade between Canada and Turkey reaching $4.3 billion in 2025, The agreement will unlock significant opportunities for business workers and investors in both countries. As we mentioned, the extension of Operation Reassurance until 2031, where it has Canadian personnel will be persistently deployed up to 2,600 in numbers. And as we mentioned also, we got support from 8 nations for the Defense, Security, and Resilience Bank. We pointed out during that none of the support came from G7 nations. I think that is by design because this bank seeks, at least our version, to provide long-term, low-cost financing for defense, security, and resilience initiatives across supply chains, helping governments and small and medium-sized enterprises address critical financing gaps. And this is specifically for smaller countries. So that was probably why that is not the case. But then we had a similar bank in the UK proposing that these two initiatives merge, which could be interesting. And then, of course, there was an extra $2 billion in military assistance for Ukraine that was announced there. Um, so that was the rest of the stuff that came out of the NATO summit. The prime minister then continued on to Saudi Arabia and met with the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman. And it says here that this was the first visit by Canadian Prime Minister to Saudi Arabia in 26 years. Prime Minister thanked the Royal Highness for his hospitality, and the leaders recognized the growing cooperation between Canada and Saudi Arabia, including the recent air transport agreement to increase air travel, and visits from Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of International Trade, Minister of Artificial Intelligence, and Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. Prime Minister Carney condemned Iran's recent attacks on Gulf countries and reaffirmed Canada's support for the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of countries in the region. The leaders emphasized the importance of de escalation, protecting civilians, and advancing diplomatic efforts to promote regional stability and security. The Prime Minister recognized Saudi Arabia's transformative Vision 2030 strategy, which has led to unprecedented investments in infrastructure, dynamic growth in tourism, and advancements in health and technology. He affirmed Canada's commitment to build a stronger partnership with Saudi Arabia built on mutual trust, pragmatic cooperation, and a focus on catalyzing benefits for our peoples. The leaders welcomed the signing of a memorandum of understanding to establish the Canada-Saudi Arabia Coordination Council, which will strengthen cooperation across key defense, economic, trade, and investment, cultural, and educational, scientific, and consular priorities. The leaders discussed harnessing Canadian expertise to catalyze innovations in health and medicine, support renewable energy projects, including wind, solar, hydrogen, and carbon capture and storage, and deploy artificial intelligence to improve and save lives. To accelerate this cooperation, Canada and Saudi Arabia signed 2 MOUs on energy and AI. Prime Minister Carney congratulated His Royal Highness, for the city of Riyadh winning the bid to host the 2030 World Expo. The Prime Minister was pleased to confirm Canada's intent to participate to showcase Canadian innovation and expertise in support of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. The two leaders underlined the FIFA World Cup as a platform for collaboration and exchange, with Canada currently co-hosting the tournament and Saudi Arabia preparing to host in 2034. The leaders agreed to remain in close contact. So we have the mention here that no prime minister has set foot in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia for 26 years. There's some reasons for that. There's some reasons for that. This led to the prime minister, of course, complimenting the Saudi military band for playing "O Canada" flawlessly, given how long it's been. That line met with some applause from people in the audience. Having listened to some interviews with Sabine Nolke, former Foreign Service Officer for Global Affairs, and Dennis Horak, who was expelled from his post as Canada's ambassador to Saudi Arabia in 2018, I was able to glean the following information. One of the reasons it has been 26 years is, well, because it's going to be hardly a surprise to anyone for me to announce this, but that Saudi Arabia is not a particularly popular state with Canadians, though. Some Canadian attitudes are changing with regard to other nations that we are doing business with that at times make us raise an eyebrow. Oh, really? Them? Such as China, the UAE, and I had a third one on the top of my head, and it just um, escaped me. Um, India. There we go. That's the one we were having issues with. Um, Attitudes towards Saudi Arabia haven't changed as much. Was, Canadians have been showing a more pragmatic approach. If we look at Canadians' attitude towards oil projects versus the time, comparing the time Trudeau was in office, especially at the beginning to now, we've seen some shifts even in the province of Quebec. People are realizing the moment that we are in, and that sometimes we're going to have to do things we would rather not do if conditions were perfect. Like, for example, building another pipeline, right? But given that we have the United States threatening us, maybe we see it in our best interest, and not only just for the money making purposes, but for other things. Like, for example, the United States decides that they're going to replace us with Venezuela, and suddenly we need to export elsewhere. Well, we do need to have the means to do that. If we start building that, then when that happens, it'll be too late, right? So in this case here, uh, there may be that type of thing going on. The other thing is that given the distance, usually a trip to Saudi Arabia, given that it's not highly ranking with us and with Canadians, would be included in a trip that allows to do several things at once, like, for example, this one, where the Prime Minister had a few stops along the way. It seems that we also don't have relations of substance with many of the other Gulf states to either create those 3-in-1 type trips that would allow us to visit at will. And then the third one is that in all this time, let's say, um, the past, like, 30 years or so, the time that Stephen Harper was prime minister, they were so close to Israel as a government that it made any rapprochement a little more difficult on that front. The Saudi government pulled their ambassador and threw ours out at the time, Mr. Horak, after objecting to some statements about the Saudi government's approach to women made by Chrystia Freeland in 2018, after the government had arrested women's rights activists who were promoting driving. Then there was the issue, if you may remember, of Raif Badawi, who's the spouse of a Canadian. His sister and he were detained by the Saudi government, and his sister, Samir, is a women's rights activist who has been internationally recognized for her work. Uh, Raif Badawi is a Saudi blogger and human rights activist arrested in 2018 for having been critical of the authorities, and he has been lashed 50 times. The tweet that Chrystia Freeland put out at the time read, quote, "Very alarmed to learn that Samir Badawi, Raif Badawi's sister, has been imprisoned in Saudi Arabia. Canada stands together with the Badawi family in this difficult time, and we continue to call for the release of both Raif and Samir Badawi." There were other tweets from Global Affairs Canada, um, indicating overall displeasure and demanding immediate release of protesters. It seems that the wording demanding immediate release was a switch from what we normally do, and triggered the Saudis. The tweet was also issued in Arabic, which we are told is an extra issue, but it isn't really a thing, according to the two people from Canada who were interviewed for these, because issuing our tweets in Arabic uh, when it involves an Arabic nation was not new for us. It was pretty much a standard practice. Um, from the Canadian perspective, what the Saudis did was viewed as a massive overreaction, and something that was a no loss move for the government of Saudi Arabia, given that we had no real relations really. Therefore, them expelling us didn't make a situation where they had a lot to lose. And it had the advantage, perhaps, because they were doing it to a G7 nation, of sending a message to other nations with whom they had more relations. Right? It's a little bit what Donald Trump did to us by imposing the fentanyl tariffs on us first before he went global. With Liberation Day, trying to show the world, well, hey, if I'm willing to do this to our closest neighbor and our alleged best friend, watch out what I'm going to do to you. It's a frequent tactic. Um, there is also, however, a lot of people thinking that the government at the time made the right choice back then, because in October 2018, relatively soon after relations between us and Saudi Arabia fell apart, that was the time where journalist Jamal Khashoggi just vanished off the face of this earth after walking into a Saudi Arabian embassy in Turkey. So it could leave the counter argument that we saw this coming and we knew what we were doing all along when the Justin Trudeau government just had no time whatsoever for Saudi Arabia when they came into power. However, the fact that we've each expelled each other's diplomats leaves us with lack of ability to make constructive engagement initiatives. We saw that in Iran when the Ukrainian Airlines plane went down because we had no consular relationships with Iran, and it looks like something that the Prime Minister might be looking to reestablish, which of course is sending the Conservatives crazy, going, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're going to have consular relations with Iran." But when you don't have that, it makes things a lot more difficult. The Prime Minister has been quoted as saying, even there, and while in Saudi Arabia, engagement is not an endorsement, and, quote, lecturing from countries from afar is an ineffective strategy. It's satisfying, but it's ineffective. Engagement can be effective. It doesn't mean it's always effective. It doesn't mean it's decisive, but it can be effective. According to these former diplomats that were interviewed, they said, we do need to be picky. There are certain nations, like maybe, for example, like Belarus or Sudan, with whom there's probably not much areas of entente of any kind for any type of engagement. But there are other nations where that can indeed be the case, Saudi Arabia being one. It's always good, like I said, to at least be able to have that contact so that when you need to engage on behalf of your citizens, it's there. You don't have to go through another nation. But we shouldn't make any, we shouldn't have any illusions about it. What we are there for when it comes to Saudi Arabia is the money, money, money. As we noted on our show, in this bid to diversify, the Prime Minister has targeted certain nations first, high population nations such as China and India, because just the sheer amount of trade that we can do. Nations with huge sovereign wealth funds like Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Norway, for example, because that's where the money is. And we're looking at, bringing in a lot of capital for the things that we need to do. We're planning on having this big foreign investment summit in Canada, I think September 16th to the 18th or around that time, and not to the type of investment summit, we are told, where people come to drop $500,000 or $1 million or two, but where people come to drop 10, 50, $100 million, maybe even more at the time. And it looks like people are accepting the invitations to come to that. There has been a little bit of news um, with regard to some foreign investment. The Conservatives have been having a field day with this one, according to Ilya Gridnev of the Financial Times. Hopefully, this one is not behind paywall. There you go. It says here, Prime Minister Mark Carney's flagship investment agency has delivered a blunt message to United Arab Emirates officials looking to pour billions of dollars into Canada. We have nowhere to put your money. 3 officials speaking on the condition of anonymity said the Calgary-based Major Projects Office in mid-June told an official UAE delegation it was too soon to inject capital into Canada. Quote, the PM keeps talking about the $70 billion UAE commitment he has secured on his first visit to November. None of that has been deployed, said one Canadian official. Canada landed a US $50 billion commitment from UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi Sheikh Khaled bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who made the official announcement in November. Oil-rich Abu Dhabi manages almost $2 trillion in sovereign funds. But after Carney hosted a UAE-Canada Business Council meeting in Ottawa in mid-June, the MPO turned away members from the Emirati delegation who were seeking investment opportunities, the official said. The reason was a lack of projects at a stage where they could deploy the money. For Quebec, Premier Jean Charest, who was the co-chair of the council, said the MPO was, quote, only one bucket of potential projects. Quote, they, the MPO, gave them the only answer they could give them at this point. We're not ready. But that is the same answer for everyone, he said. Despite the setback, Charest said Carney was Despite the setback, Carney said, let's try that one more time. Despite the setback, Charest said Carney was changing the perception that Canada, quote, was extremely difficult to get big projects done. The submarine contract bid, getting through that process quick is certainly going to help with that reputation. Uh, I don't know if this is called a setback. I mean, I do not understand how anybody would expect in 1 year and a couple months, 3 months, that there would be a major project, a new major project, like a pipeline or like a east-west electrification that would be ready to go already to take money. Like, come on, there is some lead-up work that is required before we get to that, before we get to shovel-ready. Pressure is building for the Prime Minister to sell, quote, shovel-ready projects to showcase at the Toronto Investment Summit in September, which aims to generate $1 trillion in total investments over 5 years. A UAE official said the proposed investments will, quote, will undergo the natural progression of foreign investments, which entails a thorough review of opportunities and planning that normally requires time to move forward. Quote, we will continue to work closely with Canada on all levels, federal, provincial, and with the private sector, the official said, describing the Canada-UAE relationship as, quote, one of the most important partnerships globally. Since being sworn into office March last year, Carney has pledged to double trade with non-United States partners while also transforming Canada's sluggish economy into the strongest in the G7. Nearly a year ago, he established the MPO as a new government agency to fast-track more than 20 projects worth a total of $135 billion. While the UAE is an important focus for Carney's investment diversification, the projects under discussion with the MPO are in pre-deployment phase, awaiting the completion of regulatory, legal consultation, and financing considerations. Carney has also ordered staff to finalize a UAE-Canada trade agreement expected to be signed this month. While in the UAE in November, Carney boasted that a critical minerals agreement valued at over $1 billion was, quote, in the process of being finalized. 9 months later, it has not materialized. Canada's Privy Council office and the MPO did not respond to a request for comment. In response to detailed questions, a spokesperson for International Trade Minister Maninder Sidhu said, quote, we value our strong and growing relationship with the UAE, which is basically a nothing statement. On Thursday, Carney announced a series of projects, quote, that will catalyze well over $200 billion in new direct investments, including a proposal for a 1 million barrel a day oil pipeline from Alberta to British Columbia's west coast. When quizzed on the project's lack of private sector involvement, Alberta Premier Daniel Smith said that's because 3 previous proposals did not go ahead. Investors remain wary. Quote, we have pipeline companies that have literally spent billions of dollars in recent years on failed regulatory approval processes. That's the environment we're finding ourselves in, and so it does take some work, she said. Charest said the UAE delegation had raised interest in partnering in the pipeline project, as well as broadly looking at Canada's energy sector. These are things that they know, that they're familiar with, he said. While US President Donald Trump's trade hostilities have upended Canada's economy, the country is also facing significant structural challenges, including red tape and intra-provincial trade barriers. The Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers recommended targeted, timely policy changes more aligned with the US as the best way to foster foreign investment. Canada needs a, quote, competitive and efficient tax system, streamlined and predictable regulatory processes, and expanded export infrastructure, wrote CAPP President Lisa Balton in a May pre-budget submission. To bolster Canada's exports, the MPO is fast-tracking the Contrecoeur container terminal at the Port of Montreal, which Dubai-based DP World aims to build by 2030. Joel Werner, DP World's chief operating officer in Canada, said the goal was to secure the investment by the first half of 2027. Contrecoeur is a global priority inside the DP World, he told the Financial Times. Royal Bank of Canada's chief executive, David McKay, said at an event in June that after the country's private sector was rebuffed for a decade, it was now waiting for stakeholders such as government and First Nations to be better aligned. Quote, I see that progress from the inside, and certainly we're supporting it. how all of Canada's priorities would be met by Ottawa was a very good question, Charest said. Um, on this one, Kits and Cubs, it would also appear, I believe I had read about it in Bloomberg, that officials from the UAE are not worried about Canada not being ready right now for the $70 billion of investment because this is the type of things uh, that's pretty typical for this type of thing here. Um, the UAE stance here says co-chairs of the Canada UAE Business Council and Emirati representatives have publicly confirmed that the UAE is not phasing out or backing away from the partnership, noting that international infrastructure agreements require extensive time to develop. So there you go. Um, so while you have the Conservatives trying to make, again, a big hay about this, Master Negotiator or Mark Carney said, everybody come and bring your money to invest. And now it's not ready. We look like idiots. Wah, 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 Uh, here says here at a meeting in June when Emirati officials were visiting Canada, the major projects office told UAE officials that they had no shovel-ready projects that needed an investment. The things that the major projects office are looking at are in early stages, but Charest said they are looking at plenty of other projects. Quote, no one was fazed by that, Charest said of the meetings with major projects office officials. So there you go. Uh, says here that sovereign wealth funds from the UAE, such as Abu Dhabi Investment Authority and Mubadala Investment Company, already have significant investments in Canada. Mubadala spent $4.7 billion to take CI Financial private last year, and they bought logistics firm Canada Cartage in 2022. Since 2009, Calgary-based Nova Chemicals has been controlled by Mubadala or its predecessors, and it's in Alberta where these funds from the UAE are most likely to find fertile ground for investment. Between LNG operations and pipelines, AI data centers, and critical mineral mining, Alberta is considered front and center to the UAE approach, especially given their ties to the oil industry. Shada said that come September, UAE investment officials will be back in Canada when Carney hosts an investment summit. Carney has invited top pension funds, private investment companies, and sovereign wealth funds, the UAE investment vehicles, to Toronto on September 14th and 15th. That's a general correction. I thought it was 16th to the 18th earlier, with, quote, an ambitious plan to catalyze $1 trillion in total investment in Canada over the next 5 years. Whether he can do that or not remains to be seen, but when it comes to the idea that the UAE is walking away from its plans to invest, Charest says that is fake news. So there you have it. And so, yeah, right. We are dealing more with Saudi Arabia. That is definitely for sure. Um, there are some things that we definitely do need to watch out for, as is the case with many countries where we see opportunities to work together, even though we don't necessarily align on human rights here. Dennis Horak, who was the person who was expelled, had some additional thoughts with regard to engagement, um, recognizing that, of course, the engagement with Saudi Arabia, the increased engagement, is part of a global diversification effort on the part of Canada. Um, And it's particularly important and timely because we're looking for a path forward as two nations considering the potential longer term implications of Iran keeping control of the Strait of Hormuz and also the rapidly evolving geopolitics in the region. In 2016, Saudi Arabia issued its Vision 2030 document, which was about economic and social reforms, given that they need to diversify their economy as well. One of the things that Canada and Saudi Arabia have in common is that, while Canada, we are both two nations that are exposed to a single point of failure. Saudi, its own oil, given what the projection of the markets are, it really needs to diversify relatively quickly, and it's got a few years left to do it, and it needs to modernize. Canada, we have our single point of failure is too much exposure to the United States. We're also a very important oil producing country, and we also need to diversify. So we're somewhat in the same boat, which is kind of interesting. Um, and of course, those original uh, complaints or reproaches that we had for the Saudi Arabia government at the time when Christopher Freeland wrote that tweet in 2018 um, was soon after uh, the situation it was introduced in Saudi Arabia. It's a document from 2016. Um, and I guess we weren't ready to consider it or give it a chance whatsoever. Um, However, there have been some changes in Saudi Arabia. Um, for example, if we're talking about employment, employment for women in Saudi Arabia has grown significantly, with the female labor force participation rising roughly from 17% in 2017 to over 36% today. The country has implemented sweeping reforms that protect against workplace discrimination, mandate equal pay, equalize retirement ages, and lift the ban on women driving. Um, Again, uh, there have been some changes. However, this change also seems to be coming um, with the context in Saudi Arabia that, and this is here from Mr. Horak himself. He says, "quote The context of Christopher Freeland's tweet." The context of the tweet was that the Trudeau government had no time for Saudi Arabia whatsoever and was highly critical of Saudi Arabia, even as Saudi started to institute these reforms. Uh, so we had that there, but he goes on to say that these are important and real and meaningful economic and social reforms in areas such as women's employment and driving, but they are coupled with a tightening up of the public space for political dialogue, discussion, and dissent. So that's sort of the vibe that's going on in Saudi Arabia at the moment. He mentions that we have collaborated in the past on mines, that they have a very large public investment fund. For example, if you remember, they bought the Canadian Wheat Board. It is the second largest trading relationship that we have in the Gulf, $3.5 billion in trade per year. If you remember back when we also had that light armored vehicles contract when Trudeau became a prime minister that they had vowed to cancel, but didn't in the end because of the employment impact it had, particularly in the region where they were being assembled. Mr. Horak also mentions that there was probably some legal repercussion concerns in terms of breaking a contract and reputational implications in particular, given that Canada was looking maybe to grab a foothold in that industry. And if they were showing that they were willing to kill a contract like that, it might have impeded our ability to hunt for more similar contracts and get them. So that probably had something to do with it. He also mentions an interesting tidbit that neither Minister Freeland or the Prime Minister contacted him, who was the ambassador, about this, which was to him a sign or a signal of just how important the relationship uh, with Saudi Arabia was to the government of the day at the time. And then again, to point things out, he mentions that, for example, with regard to Russia, after everything that we've done, we still have diplomatic relations with Russia, right? After everything they've done to Ukraine, what they've done to Navalny, right? They'll turn around and say, well, you Saudi Arabia, you did this with Khashoggi, so that justifies us not having any relations with you. Um, we have relations with nations that have done similar things, right? Um, he um, he granted an interview to CBC's Front Burner. And there's a couple of things that he said during it that I found particularly illuminating. One of the comments that he made had to do with um, the whole point of potentially being a little too uh, moralistic when it comes to the way that we view relations with the nations that do have us giving a little side eye when we say that we are going to do more business with them. So I'm going to move this here. This here is strictly audio, no video. So there's not much to look at here. I'm just going to make sure here that I have the right time because I already gave you some of this information here. There we go. So here, the interviewer is asking the former ambassador if he doesn't see uh, the potential hypocrisy at play. All right. So I'm just going to make sure because normally I don't share just audio. So let's see here. I think this is the way I do this. Yes, it is. All right. And then I'll just put myself right up here because since there's no particularly interesting visual to watch here.
Jobs.
Yeah. Do you see ultimately a hypocrisy there with their kind of feminist foreign policy, human rights rhetoric and what actually happened?
Yeah, I see the point. I see the point. Yes, because it was all about holding Saudi Arabia to account, but don't pay attention to any of the weapons we're selling over here.
Mhm.
Governments have to make those kinds of compromises based on, again, legal, political, reputational risks. Whether that meant they should have maybe toned down the rhetoric a little bit, or maybe the reason they upped the rhetoric is to sort of try and draw attention to how they were actually on the side of the angels on this one issue, and were forced to do this other one. So it plays into what the politics of the moment are and what audience you're trying to hit as well. I mean, when we were issuing tweets about human rights situation in Saudi Arabia, or frankly any other country, the audience there isn't the country. It isn't Saudi Arabia or isn't China. That audience for those tweets is to get likes in Canada amongst other like-minded organizations or individuals around the world, and to get a thumbs up, and that's great. It makes you feel good. It does nothing to change the situation.
So potentially jaded perspective, but right. We can stand there and we can moralize, we can wag our finger and all that kind of stuff, but on the ground, none of that actually accomplishes anything. It makes us feel good about ourselves. It allows us to take a moral high ground. It allows us to do a little virtue signaling. But eventually, the practicalities of being a government, needing to drum up business, needing to find jobs, needing to attract investment, all of that stuff becomes a reality. And at some point, you can't help but make compromises of some kind, being pure as the driven snow, particularly morality. And as we keep on saying on the show, never come to politics for morality. It's usually not on the menu. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. However, he has some closing thoughts about the engagement policy that I thought were very interesting, and worthy of a mention.
So now, do the contrast for me of how you see this government, this current government, Carney's government, pursuing a very different track.
Now I love this question because she probed him and pushed him hard on the hypocrisy thing, and now she's asking, okay, now make the counter case. And this is something that we often don't get in interviews, the counterfactual case.
Yeah, it's a much more pragmatic. It's a much more, I think, mature. It's the kind of approach that, frankly, most of the countries in the world take with Saudi Arabia. That you can engage them, you can talk with them, you can have a productive relationship with them, and still have concerns about what's going on. I mean, I talk a lot about a simple, basic diplomatic formula that engagement gives you access, and access gives you an opportunity for influence. Whether that influence will be effective, who knows? But at least you're talking to the right people because you've engaged with them on a variety of other issues. If you're just going to go in and yell at them about human rights, they're not going to listen to you. It's like yelling at your neighbor dropping the garbage at the end of your street. And if you don't even know the guy's name, he's not going to listen to you. But if you're friendly with him, or you have a rapport with them, a relationship with them, maybe if you're complaining about them making a mess at the end of your driveway, maybe they'll listen. Maybe they won't. Who knows? But it's that sort of a simple, basic human interaction.
Lecturing countries from afar is an ineffective strategy. It's satisfying, but it's ineffective. Engagement can be effective. It doesn't mean it's always effective. It doesn't mean it's decisive, but it can be effective.
So I think the Carney government, and as I said, as do most governments in the world, have this sort of sense of we can do both. We can have engagement, and we can also raise concerns when we have them, because we have the opportunity to do that in a way that's perhaps more effective, and to perhaps also have influence on the ground in a way that really affects people's lives. And there were examples when I was there about the kind of relationship we had with Saudi Arabia. I mean, the education one piece is a classic example. There were thousands and thousands of Saudis who studied in Canada, not just medicine, but other fields as well. Many of whom went back to Saudi Arabia being agents of change, came back to Saudi Arabia with a different perspective on things. One guy who was at St. Mary's, he went back and started a company solely geared to helping women enter the workforce. And whether he would have done that had he not gone to St. Mary's, I don't know. But the fact is he did. And that had much more of an impact on the lives of Saudi women than any number of tweets that could have been issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
That feels like a good place for us. And Dennis, thank you. As always, it's really great to have you on and to hear your thoughts.
My pleasure.
So I liked that story at the end, Kits and Cubs, when he was explaining how, it's not necessarily the thing that happens at the highest level, right? But for example, people-to-people ties. Some people come here, they study here, they get a feel for what life is here, and then they come back and they take some of that stuff back. And it's like, well, why don't we do that here? And then some of them try to activate and organize to try to bring about that change. So when we're talking about how we influence nations, sometimes it's not, right? It's not always, we went out and we struck this big deal and we put our signatures on it and great fanfare and then everything changed. Sometimes it's just the little stuff, increasing our opportunities to spend time together as people and share ideas and have that exchange. And then eventually that can lead to someone asking questions back home in ways such that bring about this change, right? Before 2016, what this person that they're talking about in this example was doing wasn't even a career in Saudi Arabia, right? It just wasn't, for all intents and purposes. So again, just different perspectives where we are. It's like, yeah, they're far from perfect, whatnot, but there has been some efforts and there has been some change. Now, again, even if you do recognize that change and you give them points for that, right, there still is the fact that that change seems to be coupled with a tightening when it comes to political discourse and dissent, which is not the best. We would like to have it. We would like to have it all if we could, but sometimes that is not always the case. A bit of news that's connected to all of this, kits and cubs, that you might find interesting here, and this is from CTV, from Reuters, as it appeared in CTV News at the end of June. Foreign investors, because the reason that the prime minister is doing this, right, as we mentioned, right, he's had his like big countries and the sovereign wealth countries, and then other countries, later on, like the ASEAN bloc of nations with whom we're negotiating a free trade deal, the Philippines with whom we've had like over like 100 years of different programming and ties together, looking to turn that into a free trade agreement. Same thing, I believe, with Thailand. So right, we are working on this stuff. The Mercosur group of nations as well. That's in the works as well, and we're looking at other nations. Like I said, now we're working on Turkey as well. But it says here that foreign investors, including pension funds, insurance companies, and hedge funds, are buying Canada's federal bonds in record amounts, easing the cost of funding Prime Minister Mark Carney's expensive nation-building projects, but potentially introducing more volatility to Canada's debt market. As we mentioned, right, the Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre was going to go, the Prime Minister is going to print all this money to do all this stuff. No, he's going to try and go and get it through foreign investment here. And this is indicating here that, if we have to, I was indicating to you at one point, if we have to sell bonds to do that, then we have the interest on that. But if our bonds are in demand, particularly relative to some of our bigger competitors, then that does reduce the coupon rate, which means we get to borrow money at a lower cost, which again is good for our nation. The most recent data for Government of Canada bonds show that foreign investors purchased $27.7 billion, or US $19.5 billion, in April, a record monthly total, while their share of the bonds outstanding climbed to an all-time high of 43%. Among a group of 7 sovereign debt markets, only France and Germany, backed by the euro's status as a major reserve currency, attract a higher foreign stake. Carney has committed to invest over $280 billion in the next 5 years on infrastructure, defense, and housing, as well as measures to enhance productivity, much of which is expected to be financed in the bond market. A wider investor base could increase the chances of keeping borrowing costs in check. Quote, I regard the broader buyer base as a positive development which has helped the Canadian government fund relatively large bond programs without unduly raising borrowing costs, said Andrew Kelvin, head of Canadian and Global Rate Strategy at TD Securities. The move into Canadian bonds, despite lackluster economic growth, reflects confidence in Canada as part of a shrinking band of countries whose bonds receive a AAA credit rating. Among the big 3 agencies, Moody's and S&P Global give Canada the top rank, while Fitch rates Canada's bonds at AA+. The Bank of Canada adding global investment banking powerhouse Goldman Sachs to the list of Canadian government securities distributors could also increase participation by foreign investors, including hedge funds. Hedge funds buy almost 50% of Government of Canada bonds at auction in some maturities and represent about 30% of the volume of trades between dealers and clients in the secondary market, according to the Bank of Canada. The central bank has worried that a sudden unwinding of the leverage that hedge funds employ could be a risk to financial stability. Another potential risk is an abrupt exit from the market by foreign buyers, a dynamic that France endured during a period of political uncertainty in 2017. Investors are also diversifying away from the U.S. Treasuries, according to a report last month by the Institute of International Finance that suggests the U.S. government debt increasingly looks to be on an unsustainable path. Diversification away from treasuries is one likely driver of increased foreign bond holdings in Canada, not least because of the high sovereign bond rating of Canada and liquid markets, said Robin Marshall, Director of Global Investment Research at FTSE Russell. The size of the Government of Canada bond market has more than doubled since the start of the decade to nearly $1.3 trillion after Canada ran persistent budget deficits. Among G7 countries, Canada is in the middle of the pack when measuring gross indebtedness once provincial borrowing is included. But Canada's net debt, which takes account of financial assets such as the Canada Pension Plan and the Quebec Pension Plan, is the lowest in the group by far at 10%, and its cost of borrowing at about 3.4% over a 10-year term is about 1 percentage point less than the rate investors demand on US debt, a wide gap by historical standards. Strong foreign appetite for Canadian government debt represents a vote of confidence in the stability of the country's political institutions and its overall economic trajectory, said Carl Scamota, chief market strategist at Corpay. So once again, when you have Pierre Poilievre claiming that nobody's investing in Canada and we're driving it away and all of that kind of stuff, this seems to be indicating the contrary. And even because the bond spread, the spread on the bond yields, something that I mentioned on the show regularly enough, as something that we need to keep our eye on. Also, the spread in the dollar, of course, but the spread in the bond yields, very, very important, because here again, we can borrow money at almost 1% lower than the United States does at the moment for major infrastructure projects. When you add that to the fact that we have this incredibly good credit rating, and that our net debt, when you take into account the Canada Pension Plan, Quebec Pension Plan, to other types of assets, is the lowest in the G7, and this by far. These are all things that are fantastic. So again, once the Conservatives keep on saying that, the Liberals destroyed the economy, the Liberals got us back on track with Chrétien Martin. Conservatives messed up the 2008 financial crash. They claimed they didn't see it coming. They didn't prepare for it. They didn't commit 2% of GDP as they promised our allies that they would in order to get through, in order to provide the stimulus. They cut back the stimulus too quickly. They provoked a second recession. The Trudeau Liberals came back, had recognized that we had a social and structural deficit from Stephen Harper getting all the good press on announcing funds for things, and then having the departments slowly call and then quietly claw the funds back, and then them actually not being spent. So we had to spend more. Then COVID hit. But when you look at COVID, when we look at our debt to GDP ratio in Canada, how it climbed, we also saw how it climbed down relatively quickly following it, because of the measures that the Trudeau government had put in place at the time. So that is also very important. If I show you the graph here, so we go, this is trading economics. So this was our gross debt to GDP, and you can see it here, 2019, 90.1% of GDP. So Trudeau came in late 2015, I think it was, or 2016 it was. It was 92.5% of GDP and was lowering it to 91, 90.8, 90.1. Then COVID hit. Boom, 118.1% of GDP. But very quickly after, 112.6, 103.5. These are big drops. And then, of course, then things started going up again here. So we are doing, again, relative to near-peer nations, very, very, very well. So I just wanted to put that news out about us attracting investment, because it counters some narratives that are out there being brought to us by the Conservatives, and particularly Pierre Poilievre. Okay, since I promised it to you, I'm going to go to the chat very quickly and see what we have here about Mr. Binface. Because Kit Uncover said that it was definitely sent to us. So I'm taking a look. There we go. What the country deserves is a televised debate between Nigel Farage and Count Binface. It seems people are calling for that now, even in the House, it would seem. So let's take a little look at that.
As leader of the opposition, the Prime Minister led his party to a landslide after a historic defeat. I fully intend to do the same. Yeah. But if you want to lead this country, you should set out your plans to do so. We have. But one politician intends to spend the summer avoiding scrutiny, refusing to set out his plans. So does he not agree that what the country deserves is a televised debate between Nigel Farage and Count Binface?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, they intend to spend the summer arguing with a bin. My advice to everyone is put your vote in the bin.
Put your vote in the bin. Okay. That's pretty decent. Oh, the Brits. Gotta love them. There's also, however, according to articles that Kit Uncover sent us here, that the Brits aren't buying Nigel Farage's anti-establishment crusade. It says here that a majority said the Reform UK leader's decision to resign his Clacton seat to give locals a referendum over mounting questions about his finances is a pointless waste of time and money, a new survey by Public First shows. Respondents across the UK also rated the satirical candidate known as Count Binface, Farage's main likely opponent in the October 13 by-election, as more trustworthy and likable than the man who hopes to be Prime Minister. Farage has faced recent scrutiny over big money donations he's received, including investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner. He responded last week with a high-stakes strategy. He quit as an MP to trigger what he billed as a people versus the establishment by-election, part of a broader effort by the Brexiteer to claim the establishment is out to thwart him as his party continues to top public opinion polls, because they are addicted to the likes and the clicks. But the Public First polling shows that 44% of UK voters disagree that Farage is a victim of the political establishment, compared to 28% who believe he is. The only group of voters which, on balance, back that claim are those who already intended to vote reform, 66% to 10%, because you must always be a victim. Voters currently siding with Reform's conservative rivals on the far right side against the anti-establishment claim, 30% agree with Farage to 41% disagreeing, suggesting Farage may have little ground to gain on this strategy. Cool. Respondents sided with the view that his by-election is a silly political move. Only 29% sided with it being a smart strategy, compared to 48% who believed the opposite. Few in Westminster believe that Farage will lose on October 13th. Clacton is as close to a die-hard Farage territory as it gets, but he won 46% of the vote at the last general election. But how the ploy affects his standing with the nation at large is another matter, because he's a party leader and he wants his party to do well. In the poll, 45% said the by-election bid will damage Farage's image, compared to 27% who thought it would aid his reputation. By a margin of 29 points, a majority of respondents sided with the by-election being a pointless waste of time and money. 56% disapprove of the election bid, compared to 27% who believe it's a worthwhile use of the democratic process. A majority sided with the belief the election is a bid by Farage to dodge scrutiny, 51% to 31%, but it would seem the allegations are not going unnoticed. Some 48% believe there are more reasons to doubt Farage's integrity than most other politicians, compared to 25% who disagreed, but that's not where the trust issues end for Farage. In triggering the by-election, Farage had hoped to force a showdown with his political rivals and come out saying Clacton backs him despite whatever the outcome of the investigations into reform donations. Instead, all major political parties called Farage's bluff and decided not to run against him. Farage is expected to contend. So basically, this is a situation of giving Farage everything he wants, but nothing he needs. Farage is expected to contend with a series of cranks and comedy characters, filling out the blanks on the candidate sheet in line with Britain's rich tradition of fielding satirical candidates. The most prominent opponent looks set to be character known as Count Binface, a comedian who hides head to toe under an outfit and runs in the high-profile contests on a stream of joke policies. Despite that, Binface is seen by poll respondents as a more trustworthy, with 33% putting their faith in him over 22% believing Farage is more honest. They believe Binface is more likable too, 35% in his favor to 28% for Farage. And that's where things matter, right? Because if he's a party leader, he's looking, yes, to get his own seat, but eventually he will be looking to get votes from coast to I guess from coast to coast to coast to coast. If we're talking about the UK, if he does a lot of damage in his reputation by doing this type of thing, that might reduce the odds of him winning big later on. However, voters said they think Farage better understands the problems facing Clacton compared to Binface by a margin of 7 points. Respondents backed Farage on that metric over the character who bills himself as an independent space warrior. The news is incredibly weird these days, and still interestingly fun. Kid Uncover the News gives us a little Canadians who make us proud here. London dart prodigy Lucas Fraser is competing in the World Under 18 tournament. I'm going to have to see if that pops up on my sports things that I keep on following, whether there's a World Under 18 on the list. No, there isn't. So I'm going to have to bookmark that to see how he does. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Whoa. According to Kitlinda, that dart prodigy kid is not only under 18, he's only 12 years old. Are you serious? Damn. Okay. I'll look that up and see if I can bring that to us in the Canadians Who Make Us Proud section. There we go. Let's see, what else do we have here? Kitavi G, just a reminder, Bank of Canada today. Yes, I think today is the day that we get the Bank of Canada interest rate decision. I believe that it is expected that it will stay steady. Yeah, I just looked at it right here. Bank of Canada 49 minutes ago. The Bank of Canada today held its target rate for the overnight rate at 2.25, with the bank rate at 2.5% and the deposit rate at 2.2%. Canada's economy is showing signs of improvement, growth is picking up, and inflation is projected to ease gradually from its recent spike. There are still important risks and uncertainties related to the war in the Middle East and U.S. trade policy. Since the April Monetary Policy Report, global economic prospects have been dented by higher oil prices stemming from the Middle East conflict. At the same time, the build-out of artificial intelligence is supporting economic activity in a growing number of countries. Oil prices are still lower than their peak in April, but the situation in the Middle East remains volatile. The path for global inflation is highly dependent on how the conflict unfolds. The U.S. economy is growing at about 2.5%, mostly because of strong consumption and booming AI investment. Canada's economy is expanding solidly thanks to robust exports. Economic activity in the Euro area has been weighed down by high energy prices, but is expected to strengthen in the second half of the year if energy prices come down as expected. I believe it was the IMF that recently put out growth projections for the G7 and had announced that Canada would be the second highest growing group in it. So they're predicting in its mid-year update that the United States will grow at 2.3%, Canada at 1.1%, France 0.9%, Germany 0.8%, the UK 0.8%, Japan 0.6%, and Italy 0.5%. So that probably factored into the decision as well. The bank projects global GDP growth will slow to 2.75% in 2026, mostly because of the effects of the Middle East conflict, and recover to around 3.25% in 2027-2028. Financial conditions in Canada have eased since April, and global equity markets have been buoyant. U.S. bond yields have risen, while those in Canada are little changed. This differential has contributed to the depreciation of the Canadian dollar. Canada's GDP data over the past year was choppy and growth stalled as the economy adjusted to new tariffs, high uncertainty, and slower population growth. Labor market conditions have remained soft, reflecting ongoing economic slack. The unemployment rate was 6.5% in June and has hovered in the range of 6.5 to 7 since the end of 2024. There are clear signs that economic growth has resumed in the second quarter, with growth estimated at 2.5%. While this largely reflects the unwinding of temporary factors, sources of economic growth appear to be broadening. And in Canada, when we're looking at our employment numbers, they went up a little bit more than expected last month. I think it was with 18,000 jobs created, if I am not mistaken, added exactly 18,000 net new jobs in June, a modest gain, primarily driven by part-time positions in the service sector. So the previous month, it was primarily full-time decisions. So this growth helped, full-time positions, I should say. This growth helped edge the national unemployment rate down to 6.5%. The June Statistics Canada Labour Force Survey highlights a shift towards service industries with significant growth in accommodation and food services, as well as wholesale and retail trade. However, these gains in part-time roles offset notable job losses in goods-producing sectors, particularly a decline of 17,000 manufacturing jobs. Youth unemployment experienced a strong start to the summer, with 33,000 jobs added for workers aged 15 to 24, dropping the youth unemployment rate to 12.7%. So that also led people to believe that the Bank of Canada would hold the rate steady. Says here, recent indicators point to continued solid consumer spending. Housing activity has been weak but looks to be stabilizing. Export growth has resumed and is expected to continue to strengthen, albeit on a lower path. Business investment is projected to pick up modestly, boosted in the near term by the oil and gas sector. Although the Canada-US-Mexico agreement is now subject to annual reviews, more businesses report they are finding ways to navigate through the uncertainty. Government spending also contributes to higher economic activity over the projection. Following GDP growth of 0.7% in 2026, the bank projects the economy will grow by 1.8% in both 2027 and 2028. As the recovery proceeds, economic slack will be gradually absorbed. CPI inflation rose further to 3.2% in May, mainly because of higher gasoline prices linked to the war in the Middle East. Excluding gasoline, inflation was 2.2%, and measures of core inflation remained close to 2%. Near-term inflation expectations are sensitive to changes in gasoline prices, but longer-term inflation expectations remain well anchored. War-related cost pressures are still working their way through some consumer prices, but are being offset by downward pressure on other prices from continued economic slack. CPI inflation is expected to stay elevated in June and then ease gradually in the coming months, returning to around 2% in early 2027. Although this forecast is dependent on the path for oil and gasoline prices. Inflation is forecast to average around 2% in 2027 and 2028, albeit with some monthly fluctuations because of base year effects. Governing Council judges the current policy rate remains appropriate to sustain the economic recovery and bring inflation back to the 2% target, in line with MPR projections. Uncertainty is still high. Governing Council will continue to assess the strength of the Canadian economy and the outlook for inflation, and is prepared to adjust monetary policy as needed. The bank is committed to maintaining Canada's confidence and price stability through this period of global upheaval. There you go, kids and cubs. So a little bit of additional news today to help interpret and filter the information that you are going to be getting over the next few days. All right, I think that's all I have here. Kits and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you loved listening to us, because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please, please, please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And I'm looking at the chats here, and I'm seeing that you all talked about chocolate martinis for a while, and now I want one. Man, that's so good. So yes, please, if you can, share our content with your friends and family all of that good stuff, I would definitely appreciate that, because when you share our content, people who look at you as information and influencers in their own circles are more likely to click on our material. Um, Other ways that you can help kids and cubs is by scanning this QR code, which will bring you to our YouTube page if you're not already there, where you can smash with our buttons like, share, and subscribe. So if you can do that, you can also click on the notification bell and click all to ensure that you are notified when we actually have a new episode. And if you happened to not be watching live within 7 days of this broadcast on your tablet or your phone, please swipe left on the comment section and offer us some hype points, which helps smaller audience shows like ourselves gain more visibility on YouTube. And we thank you for that. If you would like to help us in other ways, Kits and Cubs, you can scan this QR code, which will bring you to the Emergency Hydration Fund or our tip jar. To our coffee page. That's coffeeko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. You can make a one-time or recurring donation, and we get about 95 to 97% of your donation when you donate through coffee. If you want to donate through YouTube, we have stickers, super chats, and memberships. We get about 70% of your donation that way. And if you are avoiding supporting USCE Tech Bros because you're doing the Buy Canadian thing, well, then you just send us an email to truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com and make a direct transfer from your bank to our bank. There are no service fees. We get 100% of your donation, and you don't help out the CE Tech Bros. It's a good thing. Win, win, win for everyone, except the USCE Tech Bros. But they win enough already. So, it's no big deal. You don't need to feel guilty about that. I'm petty. All right. What else do we have for you, kids and cubs? If you want to contribute to the show, but in manners not financial, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. Our email address is where you can send us compliments or constructive critique about the show, guest suggestions for the interview project, questions about the show, questions about politics you would like us to answer, and your good news to help us with the doom scrolling. We thank you for that. If you want to reach us on our socials, at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, and also on the Jitter, True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home. We have Damn Fam Discord. We have True North Eager Beaver on Instagram, run by Kit Uncover, who develops our clips. We have our Substack called Beaver Bites, and of course our coffee page. And right down here, if you're watching on YouTube, in our comments section, that's the best place to get our attention, where we're most likely to see your comments. But we do go all over and try to read all of your comments, even though we're not able to answer all of them. So please do write to us. We want to know what you think it means the world to us. All right, let's see what else do we have, because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs. We had the petition. Darn. Well, number one, if you're on Prince Edward Island, you take some time off because you did some democracy yesterday. We have the petition from the change.org petition from that musical band in Saskatchewan that is trying to find a way to save some form of hockey night in Canada, free access to hockey on a regular cable for Canadians, because it is a Canadian thing. And so we have that for you. That petition has hit over the past few days 15,953 signatures. The other one that we have that will be closing relatively soon, in 10 days from now, is the petition that calls upon the House of Commons to stop funding Stornoway as a private residence for the leader of the official opposition. So that link is also in the chat for you, kids and cubs. And we thank you for your support of that initiative, which is now clocking in at 25,139 signatures. Gee, that press conference really boosted that one. There's a lot of people all of a sudden who seemingly don't want Pierre Poilievre to stay in Stornoway. Very interesting. Okay, good to know. And of course, kits and cubs, if you have the opportunity, we would, there are, I believe, in Manitoba, an appeal from the Red Cross to help with the flooding situation over there. And it says here, the Canadian Red Cross. Was this? Why does this say 2025? Shouldn't say 2025. On the Manitoba Canadian Red Cross thing. Okay, that is very interesting. Okay, forget I said that because I thought that there was something from the Manitoba Red Cross going on right now, and there could be. Do check on your own time if you want to, and if you're looking to help. But I thought there it is, 2026 Manitoba floods. I was just clicked on the wrong stuff. It says here the Canadian Red Cross is working closely with Indigenous leadership and provincial municipal governments to support individuals, families, and communities impacted by flooding in Manitoba. Cleanup kits are being offered. We are sending flood cleanup kits for distribution to people whose homes were flooded. These kits include a mop, broom, gloves, specialized cleaning products, and other supplies that can be used to safely clean flood-damaged clothes. Let's try that. These kits include a mop, broom, gloves, specialized cleaning products, and other supplies that can be used to safely clean flood-damaged homes and property. At the request of the Government of Manitoba, the Canadian Red Cross is providing in-person support in the town of Swan River, the municipality of Swan Valley West, and Benito for people accessing Government of Manitoba financial assistance programs. Dates and locations on July 15th, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Veterans Community Hall, Legion Room, 119 6th Avenue, North Swan River, Municipality of Swan Valley West Office, 216 Main Street West, Swan River, Manitoba. And Thursday, July 16th, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Municipality of Swan Valley West Office, 126 Main Street in Benito. And it says those wishing to help are encouraged to donate to the 2026 Manitoba Floods Appeal to help the people and communities affected by floods in the province. Donations to the Canadian Red Cross will be used to provide assistance to those impacted by the flooding in Manitoba with immediate and ongoing relief, recovery, and resilience efforts in response to the floods, as well as community preparedness and risk reduction for future all-hazard disaster events within Manitoba. Funds will also be used to support mobilization of response and community partners. People who would like to make a donation to the 2026 Manitoba Floods Appeal can do so online at give.redcross.ca/page/26MB-FLA. So 26 MB for Manitoba, FL for floods, or FLA for Manitoba, FLA for flood, MB, FLA for Manitoba Flood Appeal. So MB, Manitoba, FL Flood A Appeal. There we go. Only took me 3 tries to get it right. And here, Kits and Cubs is the link that you can use to make that donation to the Red Cross if you would like to do so. Says here that the Government of Manitoba will match donations to the Canadian Red Cross 2026 Manitoba Floods Appeal. Every eligible $1 donated will become $2 to support individuals, families, and communities affected by the Manitoba flood. I don't see a day here by which the matching ends. So there you go. And if you want to contribute in other ways, you can do so by phone by contacting them at 1-800-418-1111. That's 1-800-418-1111, or by emailing wecare at redcross.ca. That's wecare at redcross.ca. All right. And then again, if you're looking for the web page, give.redcross.ca/page/26MBFLA. All right, kits and cubs, that's all I've got for that portion of the show today. So let's see. Words of wisdom, kids and cubs. If you are in the areas where there is heavy smoke, please limit your exposure. Try to go out at hours where the smoke is a little less intense. And if you have the luxury of staying indoors with air conditioning, please do so. Okay. So those are my words of wisdom. It could be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself and kits and cubs. Now, can I please get a little audience participation? And at the count of 3, can I please have you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, and 3. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. And since you asked so nicely, here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, Cubs, a little bit of news about Canadians who make us proud. And as promised, we're going to talk about Lucas Fraser, who at the age of 12 has set to take on the best 18-year-old dart players in the world. What makes his appearance at the WDF World Masters Youth Dart Championship is that the boy from London, Ontario is only 12 years old. Quote, "It's pretty challenging going into some of these events because there's older players that are really good that I have to play," said Lucas Fraser, ranked 7th in the under 18 category in Canada. And here we go, kits and cubs, since I have the opportunity to do that. Here is this already very accomplished young man. There we go. Just put that out there. And yep, that's some good stuff right there. Getting back to the article here. It says he earned his invitation to the event in Las Vegas, which is July 14th to 19th, after winning a U18 tournament in Everett, Ontario. "We often have to remind ourselves and the people around us he's only 12, said Nikki Fraser, Lucas's mom. "He's competing against usually kids that are 15, 16 in this tournament, 18. It's a good reminder that he's 12. He has a lot of years still to come where we hope we can do this a few more times." In preparation for the main event, he's been practicing nearly 2 hours per day. "He wakes up, he goes right down to the basement," said Nikki. "He practices right after supper. He practices every day, like his free moments, and that's all he does right now. He picked up the game 4 years ago after watching his father play. It was just my dad playing in the basement, and we came down and joined him," he said Lucas. "He had the high board, and we had the low board that we'd play on. After getting hooked watching his dad, they joined the London Youth Dart League. His mom credits darts with helping him at math and work ethic. Lucas has won multiple provincial titles and warned a runner-up finish at nationals." I'm going to guess that was supposed to be earned. "I throw fast, and when I play other people, they usually pick up into my rhythm, and it throws them off," said Lucas of his success. When competing at the MYDC at the Rio Hotel and Casino, he'll be going up against some elite young players from around the world. The youth from Europe, our hockey is like darts for them, said Nikki. They've been playing since they were 2, so even just to make it a few rounds, and I truly believe he'll be able to make it a few rounds. We're just proud that he got the invitation, and we're excited for him to see him on that level. Lucas believes he can compete and says he's really excited. I hope to make it a few rounds in, but it's going to be tough because there's a lot of good players from a lot of different countries in the world, he said. Well, good for you. And I hope you do better than you had even expected and dreamed. Because, wow, what an accomplishment. How fantastic that is. Good for him. Good for him. Also, talking about some Canadians who make us proud, Kits and Cubs. We need to talk about Canada's under 17 women's basketball team, who will be taking on the Czech Republic at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time in the first round of the playoffs. So we wish them lots of good fortune and hope that they will be able to get that victory and continue on in the tournament. Unfortunately, they are in the United States of America's half of the playoff draw, which is never fun. But hey, we keep fighting. We keep fighting anyway. All right, Kits and Cubs, that's all I have for you today. Amour et bisous, and we will see you again tomorrow. Bye.